The wind came hard across the plains that October morning, carrying dust and the smell of dying grass. Caleb Rourke stood on the porch of his ranch house, watching the road like a man waiting for judgment. His shirt hung loose on a frame that had shed 20 pounds since Martha died. The wedding ring he'd buried with her had left a pale band on his finger that wouldn't tan, wouldn't fade, wouldn't let him forget. He wasn't a man given to hope anymore. Hope was expensive, and he was broke in every way that mattered. The wagon appeared first as a dark smudge against the horizon, then slowly took shape. A single horse pulling a freight wagon driven by old Pete Harmon, who ran the supply route from town. Caleb's stomach tightened. She was real then, not some fever dream born of desperation and whiskey. He'd written the letter 3 months ago, sitting at Martha's grave with a bottle and the last of his pride. Widowed rancher seeks capable woman for marriage. Hard work guaranteed. Romance not. He'd paid the placement fee with money he should have used for seed, gotten one response. A woman named Elora Quinn. No family listed, no references, just a single line at the bottom of her letter that had made him say yes. I don't need saving, I need distance. The wagon pulled up in a cloud of dust. Pete set the brake and climbed down, not meeting Caleb's eyes. Got your package, Rourke. Package. Like she was feed grain or fencing wire. The woman who stepped down from the wagon bed wasn't what Caleb had pictured. He'd imagined someone soft and desperate, maybe older, maybe plain. Elora Quinn was none of those things. She stood about 5'6", lean and straight-backed, wearing a dark traveling dress that had seen better years but was clean and carefully mended. Her hair, a deep brown that caught red in the sunlight, was pinned back tight. But it was her face that stopped him. Not beautiful in any delicate way, but striking. Sharp cheekbones, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile, and eyes the color of river stone. Cold eyes. Careful eyes. Eyes that had seen things and locked them away. She looked at the house, the barn, the empty corrals, the fields gone to weed, taking inventory. Her expression didn't change. Mr. Rourke, her voice was lower than he'd expected, steady. Ma'am, he came down the porch steps. You can call me Caleb. Elora, she turned to Pete. My trunk. Pete hauled a battered leather trunk from the wagon bed. Not large, not fancy. Everything she owned, probably. He set it in the dust and tipped his hat. I'll leave you folks to it. He looked at Elora with something like pity. Town's a half-day's ride if you need anything, miss. If you need to leave, he meant. Elora's expression didn't flicker. I won't. Pete climbed back up and snapped the reins. The wagon rolled away, leaving them standing in the dust and wind, two strangers about to make promises they might not keep. Caleb picked up her trunk, lighter than he'd expected. House is this way. Inside, the place showed its neglect. Dishes in the basin, dust on the mantel, a man's boots by the door and nothing else. No softness, no life beyond survival. Elora walked through slowly, still taking inventory. She ran a finger along the kitchen table, looked at the dust, wiped it on her skirt without comment. There's 2 bedrooms, Caleb said, feeling the need to fill the silence. You can have the one on the left. I took the other after... He stopped. It's got a good window. Where do you keep your tools? The question caught him off guard. Barn. Most of them. Why? I'll need to know where things are. She turned to face him. The letter said hard work. I'm here to work, but I need to know the terms. Terms. Of the arrangement. Her voice stayed level, businesslike. You need a wife. I need a home, but I won't be treated like property, and I won't be asked questions about what came before. My past is mine. That's the price. Caleb studied her. Most women would have at least pretended warmth, would have smiled nervously, would have tried to make this easier. Elora Quinn stood there like she was negotiating a land deal, and maybe that's exactly what this was. Fair enough, he said. I got my own ghosts. Don't need to go poking at yours. Something flickered in her eyes. Not quite relief, but close. When's the ceremony? Tomorrow. Justice of the peace in town. We'll ride in at first light. She nodded. Then I'll start tonight. This house needs work. You don't have to... I'm not going to sit idle. She moved toward the trunk. I'll need water heated if you have a kettle, and soap. Caleb watched her unpack. a few dresses carefully folded, a hairbrush with half the bristles missing, a small bundle wrapped in cloth that she set aside quickly, not wanting him to see. No photographs, no jewelry, no Bible, even. A woman traveling light, ready to run. He knew that feeling. That night, he lay in the dark and listened to her moving through the house. The scrape of furniture being shifted, water pouring, the steady rhythm of scrubbing. She cleaned like she was trying to erase something, to make the space new. Around midnight, he heard her stop, heard the creak of her bedroom door, then silence. He stared at the ceiling and wondered what the hell he'd done. Morning came cold and gray. Caleb found Alara already awake, dressed in a plain gray dress, her hair pinned back severe. She'd cleaned the kitchen, organized the shelves, and made coffee that was actually drinkable. "Ready?" he asked. "Yes." They rode to town in silence, the horses' hooves crunching on the dry road. Caleb tried to think of something to say, some way to make this less awkward, but everything that came to mind felt wrong. Finally, he gave up and let the quiet settle. The justice of the peace was a man named Hendricks, thin and nervous, who kept glancing at Alara like he was expecting her to bolt. The ceremony took 5 minutes. There were no flowers, no guests, no celebration, just words spoken in a dusty office that smelled like old paper and tobacco. "Do you, Caleb James Rourke, take this woman?" "I do." "And do you, Alara Margaret Quinn, take this man?" "I do." Flat, final. "Then by the power vested in me by the state, I pronounce you man and wife." Hendricks looked at Caleb expectantly. The kiss. Right. Caleb leaned in awkwardly. Alara met him halfway, and their lips touched briefly. A formality, nothing more. Her mouth was warm but unresponsive, there and gone. Married. They signed the papers. Hendricks filed them away. And that was it. Alara Quinn became Alara Rourke, and neither of them looked happy about it. On the ride back, Caleb finally broke the silence. "There's things you should know. About the ranch." "I'm listening." "It's not good. I'm behind on the banknote. Lost most of the herd last winter. Bad freeze. Didn't have enough feed stored. Been trying to rebuild, but..." He gripped the reins tighter. "I can't promise this'll work. Can't promise we won't lose it all." "Why tell me now? After the ceremony?" "Because you have a right to know what you married into." She was quiet for a long moment, then, "I don't need promises. I need work. Show me what needs doing, and I'll do it." It wasn't comfort, but it was something. Caleb nodded. They worked that first week like strangers bound to a common task. Alara proved herself relentless. She could mend fence, handle tools, work from dawn until her hands bled, and never complain. She cooked simple, solid meals. She didn't waste words. She didn't waste anything. But she also didn't let him in. At night, they retreated to separate rooms. She never asked about Martha, never asked about his family, or how he'd ended up alone on a failing ranch. And he returned the favor, even though questions built up in his mind. The way she sometimes stared at the horizon like she was watching for someone. The way she never fully relaxed, even inside the house. The scar on her left wrist, thin and white, that she always kept covered. A week became 2. The weather turned colder. They fell into a routine. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. It was functional. It was empty. Then the children came. Eat. Caleb spotted them from the north field, 2 small shapes stumbling across the grass. At first, he thought they were animals. Then he saw the flash of a torn dress, the pale gleam of a face. He ran. The boy was maybe 8, thin as a rail, with dark hair and eyes too old for his face. He was half carrying a girl who couldn't have been more than 5, blonde and silent, her lips cracked and bleeding. Both were filthy, scratched, exhausted. "Hey!" Caleb skidded to a stop in front of them. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The boy raised his fists anyway, swaying on his feet. "Stay back. Easy. You're on my land, but you're safe here." Caleb crouched down. "What's your name?" The boy's eyes darted past him, looking for threats, for traps. "Micah. Micah. I'm Caleb. This is my ranch. That's my house." He pointed. "You hungry?" Micah's jaw tightened. The girl whimpered, and his resolve cracked. Yeah. Come on, then. He led them back to the house, moving slow so the girl could keep up. Alara was at the pump, washing vegetables. She looked up as they approached, her expression sharpening instantly. Found them in the north field, Caleb said. They need food, water, maybe a doctor. Alara's eyes swept over the children, taking in every detail, the bruises, the hunger, the terror barely contained. Her face went very still. Then she moved. Bring them inside. She worked quickly, efficiently, got water heating, found clean cloths, sat the children at the table and put bread and milk in front of them. The boy, Micah, ate like someone who'd learned not to trust when the next meal would come. Fast, defensive. The girl just stared at the food until Micah broke off a piece and put it in her hand. Her name's Lena, he said quietly. She don't talk much. Where are your folks? Caleb asked. Micah's face went hard. Dead. Ma died last spring. Pa died 2 months back. Fever. Other family? No. Alara knelt in front of Lena, meeting her eyes. You're safe here. Nobody's going to hurt you, understand? Lena stared at her, then slowly nodded. Good. Alara stood. Caleb, can I talk to you outside? They stepped onto the porch. The wind had picked up, bringing the smell of rain. They can't stay, Caleb said, though the words felt wrong coming out. We barely got enough for ourselves. They have nowhere else. There's an orphanage in... No. Alara's voice went sharp. No orphanage. Alara, I know what those places are like. She met his eyes, and for the first time he saw something raw there, something she usually kept locked away. I know what happens to children with nobody, and I'm telling you, we're not sending them there. We don't have the resources, then we'll find them. They stay. It wasn't a request. Caleb looked at her, this woman he barely knew, making decisions about their lives like she had the right. Maybe she did. Maybe that's what marriage meant, even one like theirs. This changes things, he said. Yes, it does. He looked through the window at the 2 children sitting at his table, small and broken, and desperately needing something he wasn't sure he could give. All right, he said. They stay. But we do this right. They work, they learn, they earn their keep. This isn't charity. Agreed. They went back inside. Micah looked up warily, reading their faces. You can stay, Caleb said, but there's conditions. You work. You mind what we say, you cause trouble, and we'll revisit this arrangement. Clear? Micah's eyes went bright. Clear. There's a small room off the kitchen. Used to be storage. We'll clean it out, get you bedding. For now, you can wash up and get some rest. The boy nodded, then hesitated. Why are you helping us? Caleb didn't have a good answer. He looked at Alara, who was watching the children with an expression he couldn't quite read. Because someone should, she said quietly. Okay. That night, after the children were asleep, Caleb and Alara sat at the table with the reality of what they'd done settling around them. We can't afford 2 more mouths, Caleb said. You know that. We'll manage. How? She was quiet for a moment. I have some money. Saved. Not much, but enough to get through the winter if we're careful. You were going to tell me about this when? When it was necessary. Now it is. She met his eyes. I'm not asking permission. Those children stay. I already said yes. I know, but I need you to understand. I'm not doing this to be kind. I'm doing this because I know what it's like to be them. And I won't let that happen again if I can stop it. There it was, a crack in the armor. Not much, but enough. What happened to you? Caleb asked softly. Alara stood. That's not part of our arrangement. Good night, Caleb. She left him sitting there, and he didn't follow. Some doors opened on their own time, and he'd learned not to force them. The children changed the rhythm of the house. Micah proved himself quick and capable, learning tasks with a speed that spoke to hard lessons already learned. He watched everything, trusted nothing, and protected his sister with a fierceness that reminded Caleb of a wounded animal guarding its young. Lena remained silent. She followed Alara everywhere, a small shadow with blonde hair and enormous blue eyes. Alara never seemed bothered by it. She'd talk to the girl while she worked, not expecting answers, just maintaining a steady stream of words like she was building a bridge out of sound. We're going to plant beans here come spring. You ever seen beans grow? They climb right up stakes, reaching for the sun. Fast growers, not like corn. Corn takes its time, makes you wait. But beans, they're eager. Caleb watched them from a distance, this strange new household forming around him. It wasn't what he'd planned. It wasn't even close. But it was something. One evening, about 3 weeks after the children arrived, he found Micah in the barn after dark. The boy was sitting in the hayloft, staring at nothing. "You all right?" Caleb asked. Micah jumped, then tried to hide it. "Yeah, just thinking." Caleb climbed up, settled onto a hay bale. "About what? How long we got?" "What do you mean?" The boy looked at him with those two old eyes. "Before you change your mind, send us away." Caleb felt something twist in his chest. "That's not going to happen." "You say that now. I mean it. People always mean it. Then things get hard, or we cost too much, or we're too much trouble." Micah's voice stayed flat, factual. "That's just how it is." "Not here. Alara won't allow it, and neither will I." "Why? You don't know us. We're nothing to you." Caleb thought about that. About Martha. About the baby they'd lost before she died. About the emptiness that had been eating him alive until he'd made a desperate choice and ordered a stranger from a catalog. "Maybe that's exactly why," he said. "Maybe we need you as much as you need us." Micah looked at him like he wanted to believe but didn't dare. "She's tough, your wife." "Yeah, she is. She got secrets, I can tell." "We all got secrets, kid. Hers are bad ones, the kind that follow you." Caleb looked at the boy. "How do you know?" "Because mine are too." Micah stood. "I'm going to check on Lena." He left Caleb sitting there in the dark, wondering what kind of life an 8-year-old had to live to recognize darkness in others. Winter came hard that year. The first snow hit in late November, 3 days of heavy fall that buried the ranch and sealed them in. They worked together to keep the animals fed, to keep the house warm, to keep going. Alara proved herself indispensable. She could doctor sick livestock, repair broken equipment, shoot straight when coyotes came too close to the henhouse. She was harder than the winter, and Caleb found himself grateful for it. The children thrived in ways that surprised him. Micah grew stronger, more confident. Lena began to smile, small, rare expressions that lit up her whole face. She still didn't speak, but she'd started humming while she worked, a tuneless sound that somehow made the house feel less empty. Christmas came and went quietly. They had no money for gifts, but Alara made a rag doll for Lena, and Caleb carved a wooden horse for Micah. The children stared at the presents like they'd been given gold. "You didn't have to," Micah said, clutching the horse. "We wanted to," Alara said. And maybe it was Caleb's imagination, but her voice sounded almost warm. That night, after the children were asleep, Caleb and Alara sat by the fire. She was mending one of his shirts, her hands quick and efficient in the lamplight. "Thank you," he said. She looked up. "For what?" "The doll. Making today special for them. They're children. They deserve special days. You're good with them. Better than I expected." Her hand stilled. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Just, you're different with them. Softer." "Don't mistake necessity for softness." But her voice lacked its usual edge. "Alara, don't." She went back to her mending. "Whatever you're about to ask, don't." He let it go, but he filed away the observation, added it to the slowly growing list of things he was learning about his wife. She was fierce and guarded and carried wounds she wouldn't name. But with those children, with Lena especially, something in her shifted. Not broke, just eased. It was a start. January brought a thaw, then a hard freeze that killed 2 of their chickens and cracked the water pump. They fixed what they could, rationed what they couldn't. Money was tighter than ever. The banknote loomed. Caleb made a trip to town for supplies they couldn't do without. When he came back, Micah met him at the barn, his face tight with worry. "What's wrong?" Caleb asked. "Man came by, on a horse, didn't give his name, asked if Alara was here." Every muscle in Caleb's body went tense. "What did you tell him?" "Said I didn't know any Alara. He didn't believe me. He's waiting by the creek. Caleb looked toward the house. Through the window, he could see Alara moving in the kitchen, unaware. Go inside, stay with Lena. Lock the door. Is she in trouble? I don't know yet. Go. Micah ran. Caleb grabbed his rifle and headed for the creek. The man was leaning against a cottonwood tree, smoking. Tall, maybe 30, with dark hair and eyes that held a mean intelligence. He smiled when he saw Caleb. You must be the husband. You must be trespassing. The man laughed. Fair enough. Name's Daniel Quinn. I'm looking for my sister. Quinn, Ilara's maiden name, the brother from her past, the one she'd never mentioned. Don't know anyone by that name, Caleb said. Sure you do, Ilara, my baby sister. Ran off about 4 months back. Heard she might have ended up out here, married some rancher desperate enough to buy a wife sight unseen. Daniel flicked his cigarette away. That'd be you, I'm guessing. If I knew where your sister was, what business would that be of yours? Family business. See, Ilara and we got unfinished matters. She left town with something that belongs to me, and I've come to collect. She don't want to see you, seems like. Seeing as she didn't mention having a brother. Daniel's smile faded. Listen, friend, I'm trying to be civil about this. But civil has limits. Tell Ilara I'm here. Tell her I'm not leaving until we talk. She knows what this is about. Get off my land. Or what? You gonna shoot me? That'd bring the law down, and I don't think you can afford that kind of attention. Not with the state this place is in. Daniel looked around, assessing. Struggling, aren't you? Behind on payments, probably. One bad season from losing everything. My sister picked you because you were vulnerable? Because a desperate man asked fewer questions? Caleb raised the rifle. Last chance. Daniel held up his hands. All right, I'm going, but I'll be back. And next time, I won't be alone. He started toward his horse, then stopped. One more thing. You should ask Ilara about why she really left, about what she did. Might change how you feel about having her in your home. Around those children. He rode off before Caleb could respond. Caleb stood there until the hoofbeats faded, then walked back to the house. Ilara was on the porch, her face pale but composed. You heard, he said. I heard. Who is he? What does he want? My brother. And something I took from him when I left. What did you take? She met his eyes. Myself. They stood there in the cold, the weight of her past pressing down on them both. He said you did something. Something bad. He would say that. Is it true? Ilara was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady, but there was something underneath it. Not quite fear, but close. I survived. Sometimes that means doing things you're not proud of. But I won't apologize for it, and I won't explain it, not to you, not to him. That part of my life is done. He says he's coming back. I know. Are we in danger? Are the children? Not from him, not directly. Daniel's too smart for that. He'll try to leverage me, try to use shame or fear or whatever he thinks will work. But he won't risk violence, not worth it to him. What does he want? To punish me for leaving, to make me regret choosing myself over him and his plans. She wrapped her arms around herself. I won't go back, Caleb. I need you to know that. Whatever he says, whatever he threatens, I won't go back. Caleb looked at this woman he'd married, still mostly a stranger, still guarding her wounds like treasures. I'm not asking you to. Something flickered in her expression, surprise maybe, or relief. Why? Because this is your home now. Whatever came before, whatever he thinks you owe him, it doesn't matter. You're my wife. That means something, even if we didn't marry for love. Ilara's eyes went bright. For a moment, Caleb thought she might cry. But she didn't. She just nodded, once, sharp. Thank you, she said quietly. But Ilara, if this gets bad, if he comes back with men or causes real trouble, I need to know what we're dealing with. I need to know what you took. She looked away. When the time comes, I'll tell you. But not yet. Not while there's still a chance he'll give up and leave. And if he doesn't, then we'll deal with it, together. It wasn't the answer Caleb wanted, but it was the one he was going to get. Daniel Quinn didn't come back the next day or the day after. A week passed, then 2. The tension in the house grew thick. Alara worked harder than ever, like she could outrun her fear through sheer effort. The children sensed something was wrong and stayed quiet, watchful. Caleb found himself checking the road more often, the rifle always close. He'd built a life alone, grieving and empty. Now he had people depending on him, a wife who wouldn't trust him, children who'd been abandoned too many times, and a threat circling like a wolf waiting for weakness. One night, he woke to find Alara's room empty. He found her outside, standing in the cold in just her nightdress, staring at the horizon. "You'll freeze," he said, draping a blanket over her shoulders. She didn't respond. "He might not come back. Might have just been trying to scare you." "He'll come back?" "Men like Daniel always do. They can't stand losing." "What did he lose?" Alara turned to him, and in the moonlight her face looked carved from stone. "Control. I was supposed to marry his business partner, a man twice my age who'd paid Daniel a bride price. I was supposed to smile and obey and make both of them wealthier. Instead, I stole the money Daniel had been paid, forged papers to make myself older, and bought a train ticket west. Finally, a piece of the truth." "How much?" Caleb asked. $500? He whistled low. That was a fortune, enough to save his ranch twice over. "I spent most of it getting here, paying the marriage fee, buying supplies. There's maybe 50 left." She pulled the blanket tighter. "I'm not sorry I took it. He was selling me like livestock, but I knew he'd come looking eventually. Knew I couldn't hide forever." "You could have told me. Before we married. Would you have still said yes? If you'd known a man like Daniel might come looking for me?" Caleb thought about it honestly. "I don't know. Maybe not. That's why I didn't tell you." They stood there in the cold, the truth settling between them like snow. "What happens now?" Caleb asked. "Now we wait, and when he comes back, we end this. One way or another." She walked back to the house, leaving Caleb alone in the dark, wondering what kind of ending she had in mind, and what it might cost them all. Daniel came back on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks later, and he didn't come alone. Caleb saw them from the barn, 3 riders cresting the hill, moving slow and deliberate like men who had all the time in the world. He recognized Daniel immediately by the way he sat his horse, cocky and casual. The other 2 were strangers, hard-looking men with guns visible on their hips. "Micah," Caleb's voice cut across the yard. "Get in the house, now. Take Lena with you." The boy's head snapped up from where he'd been feeding the chickens. He saw the riders and went pale, but he didn't freeze. He grabbed his sister's hand and ran. Caleb walked to the house, keeping his movements unhurried. Inside, Alara was already at the window, her face set like stone. She had a rifle in her hands. "I told you he'd come back," she said. "That's not going to help." Caleb nodded at the gun. 3 of them, and they haven't drawn yet. We start shooting. This ends badly for everyone. "So what do you suggest?" "Let me talk to him." "He's my brother. My problem." "He's on my land." "That makes it my problem too." Caleb met her eyes. "Let me try first. If it goes wrong, you'll get your chance." She didn't look happy, but she lowered the rifle. "Don't make promises you can't keep." Wasn't planning on it. He stepped out onto the porch as the riders approached. Daniel dismounted first, his 2 companions staying in their saddles, hands resting easy near their weapons. Professional then. Men who'd done this before. "Caleb Rourke." Daniel smiled like they were old friends. "Good to see you again. Hope you don't mind I brought some associates. Wanted to make sure we had a proper conversation this time." "We got nothing to talk about." "Now that's not true. See, I've been thinking about our last chat, about my sister and her situation here." Daniel looked around the ranch, taking in the sagging fence, the patched roof, the general air of struggle. "Seems to me she landed in a rough spot, married a man barely keeping his head above water, living hand to mouth. That's no life for family." "She chose it, that's all you need to know." "Did she, though? Or did she just run so far she ran out of options?" Daniel's voice stayed pleasant, but there was steel underneath. "See, Alara's always been impulsive, does things without thinking them through, gets herself into situations she can't handle." The door opened behind Caleb. Alara stepped out, no rifle now, just her presence, cold and unyielding. "Hello, Daniel." Her brother's smile widened. "There she is. Been a while, little sister." "Not long enough. That hurts. After all we've been through together?" He put a hand over his heart in mock pain. I raised you after Ma died, kept you fed, kept you safe. This is how you repay me? Stealing from me and running off in the night? You didn't raise me. You used me. There's a difference. I gave you opportunities. A good marriage to a wealthy man. Security. Respect. You threw it away for what? This? He gestured at the ranch with contempt. A failing homestead and a husband who bought you like livestock. Caleb's jaw tightened, but Alara spoke before he could. Better than being sold like livestock. At least here, I chose. Daniel's pleasant mask slipped for just a moment, showing the anger beneath. Then he smoothed it back into place. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to offer you a chance to make this right. Come back with me. Return what you took. I'll square things with Thomas, tell him you had a moment of feminine panic, but you've come to your senses. He might even still marry you. No. Alara, I said no. I'm not going anywhere with you. I'm not going back to that life. Whatever you think I owe you, consider it paid in full for 18 years of being your pawn. Daniel's expression hardened. You took $500 from me. That's theft. I could go to the sheriff, have you arrested. Would be a shame if your new husband here got caught up in it. Hard to run a ranch from a jail cell. Go ahead, Alara said. Tell the sheriff your sister stole money you got from selling her to a man old enough to be her father. See how sympathetic he is. You think anyone's going to take your word over mine? You're a woman who abandoned her family and married a stranger. I'm a respectable businessman with witnesses who'll swear I gave you that money as a dowry and you stole it instead. Daniel took a step closer. I'm trying to be reasonable here, but my patience has limits. Caleb moved between them. You've said your piece. Now get off my land. This doesn't concern you, Rourke. The hell it doesn't. She's my wife. That concerns me plenty. One of Daniel's men shifted in his saddle, hand drifting toward his gun. Caleb didn't look at him, kept his eyes on Daniel. You really want to throw your lot in with her? Daniel asked. You don't even know what she's capable of. The things she did before she ran. Ask her about Thomas's son. Ask her why the boy walks with a limp now. Caleb felt Alara stiffen beside him. What's he talking about? Nothing, she said tightly. She didn't tell you. Daniel's smile returned. Thomas had a son from his first marriage, 20 years old, thought he was entitled to sample the merchandise before the wedding. Alara disagreed. Violently. Broke his knee with a fire poker. That's when I knew she'd be trouble, but Thomas still wanted her. Said he liked spirit in a woman. He paused. Of course, he wanted assurances she'd be properly subdued before the ceremony. That's what the money was for. A specialist who could teach her obedience. The words hung in the air like poison. Caleb's stomach turned. You were going to... He couldn't finish the sentence. I was going to ensure my investment wasn't wasted, Daniel said calmly. But she ran before arrangements could be finalized, took my money and disappeared. So yes, little sister, I think you owe me. And I'm here to collect. Alara's voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper, but it cut like a blade. You'll die before you collect anything from me. Big words for a woman with 2 children hiding in that house. Be a shame if something happened to them while we're settling our debts. That did it. Caleb's hand went to his gun. Don't, Daniel said sharply. His men drew their weapons. Think about this, Rourke. You're 1 man. We're 3. You might get me, but my friends here will cut you down. Then what happens to Alara, to those kids? Caleb's hand stayed on his gun, but he didn't draw. The math was bad, and Daniel knew it. Here's what's going to happen, Daniel continued. I'm going to give you time to think this over. 3 days. Then I'm coming back, and Alara's coming with me. Or I'm bringing the sheriff and enough men to make this messy. Your choice. There is no choice, Alara said. I'm not going. Then people are going to get hurt, and that's on you. Daniel mounted his horse. 3 days, little sister. Think real careful about what you're willing to sacrifice for your pride. They rode off, leaving Caleb and Alara standing in the dust. Inside the house, Caleb could see Micah's face pressed against the window, pale and frightened. Alara turned and walked away, heading toward the barn. Caleb followed. He found her in the back stall, her hands braced against the wall, shaking with what he realized was rage, not fear. You should have let me shoot him, she said. Would have gotten us both killed. Maybe that would have been better. Don't! Caleb's voice came out harder than he meant. Don't you dare stand there and talk about dying, not with those kids in that house depending on us. She spun to face him. You heard what he said, what he planned to do to me. And you're still going to pretend this is about honor or duty or whatever story you've been telling yourself? I heard him. I also heard you say no. That's what matters. Is it? Because most men would have handed me over by now, cut their losses. You don't owe me anything, Caleb. We barely know each other. I know enough. You know nothing, her voice cracked. You don't know what I did before I came here. The things I... She stopped, fighting for control. That boy. Thomas's son. Daniel wasn't lying about that. I did break his knee. I'd do it again too because he tried to... Another stop. But that makes me violent, dangerous. Maybe Daniel's right. Maybe you should be afraid of me. Caleb crossed the space between them. Are you going to hurt those children? What? No, I would never... Are you going to hurt me? Of course not. Then I don't care what you did to some bastard who tried to force himself on you. I don't care what Daniel says you are. What I care about is what you've shown me since you got here. And that's someone who works harder than anyone I've ever met. Someone who took in 2 orphans without a second thought. Someone who's given me more reason to fight for this place than I've had in 2 years. He gentled his voice. You're not the monster he's trying to make you into. Alara's eyes were bright with tears she refused to shed. He's going to come back. With men. With the law, maybe. And when he does, we'll deal with it. Together. You keep saying that. Together. Like it means something. It does mean something. We're married. That's not just a piece of paper. She laughed, a broken sound. You married me because you needed help on this ranch. I married you because I needed to disappear. Don't pretend it was more than that. Maybe it wasn't, but it is now. Caleb held her gaze. I'm not letting him take you, not without a fight. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then Alara's shoulders sagged, and some of the fight went out of her. 3 days, she said quietly. What are we going to do? First thing, we talk to Micah and Lena. They need to know what's happening. They're children. They shouldn't have to... They've already lived through worse, and they're smart enough to know something's wrong. Better they hear it from us. Alara nodded slowly. All right, but I tell them, this is my mess. They walked back to the house together. Inside, Micah and Lena were sitting at the table, silent and watchful. Alara pulled up a chair, and Caleb leaned against the counter, giving her space. That man who was here, Alara began. He's my brother. His name is Daniel, and he wants me to go back east with him. You gonna go? Micah asked, his voice tight. No, but he's not going to give up easy. He's going to come back. And when he does, things might get dangerous. Dangerous how? He might try to take me by force. He might bring the sheriff, accuse me of stealing. He might... She stopped, choosing her words carefully. He might try to hurt the people around me to make me cooperate. Lena made a small sound of distress. Micah put his arm around her. We ain't going to let him take you, the boy said fiercely. This isn't your fight, Micah. The hell it ain't. You took us in when nobody else would, fed us, gave us a home. You think we're just going to stand by and let some bastard drag you off? Micah. No. The boy stood. I know I'm just a kid. I know I can't do much. But I can watch. I can warn you if he comes back. You can stay in the house and keep your sister safe, Caleb interrupted. That's the best thing you can do. We need to know Lena's protected. Micah looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Caleb's tone stopped him. All right. But if shooting starts, I'm not hiding. Fair enough? Alara reached across the table, covered Micah's hand with hers. Thank you, both of you, for staying, for caring. Lena leaned forward and, for the first time since arriving, spoke. Her voice was small and rusty from disuse, but clear. We're family now, she said. Family stays. The silence that followed was heavy with things nobody quite knew how to say. Then Alara pulled both children into a hug, fierce and sudden, and Caleb had to look away because the emotion in her face was too raw, too private. That night, after the children were in bed, Caleb and Alara sat at the table making plans. Or trying to. We could run, Alara said. Pack up tonight. Head further west. Lose ourselves in California or Oregon. With what money? We've barely got enough to make it through spring, and Daniel would just follow. He's got resources, we don't. Then what? We can't fight three armed men. We can't go to the law if he's planning to use them against us. Caleb drummed his fingers on the table. What if we could? Could what? Use the law. You said Daniel got that money from selling you to Thomas. That's got to be illegal somehow. It's his word against mine, and I did steal the money. That part's not in dispute. But you stole it because he was going to... Caleb struggled with the words. Because of what he planned. That's got to count for something. In a perfect world, maybe. But I'm a woman who ran away from family. He's a businessman with a reputation. Who do you think the law is going to believe? She was right, and Caleb knew it. Justice was a luxury they couldn't afford. There's another option, Alara said slowly. I could give him what he wants. You said there's only $50 left. Not the money, me. I could go with him, peacefully, on the condition that he leaves you and the children alone. No. Caleb, I said no. We're not even considering that. It would solve everything. You'd keep the ranch, the kids would be safe, and Daniel would get what he came for. And what happens to you? You think he's just going to forgive and forget? After what you did? After you humiliated him? Caleb leaned forward. He'll punish you, Alara. You know he will. She met his eyes, and there was something bleak in her expression. I've survived worse. That's not the point. The point is you shouldn't have to. You got out. You built something new here. I'm not letting him drag you back to that. Why? The question came out plaintive. Why do you care so much? I'm just some woman you bought because you were lonely and desperate. We don't love each other. We barely know each other. Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Then he said carefully, I watched my wife die. Watched her slip away a little more every day until there was nothing left but a shell. I couldn't save her. Couldn't do a damn thing except hold her hand and pretend I wasn't falling apart. He paused. I'm not doing that again. I'm not standing by and watching someone I care about get destroyed. Not if I can help it. You care about me? Yeah, I do. Don't know when it happened exactly. Maybe when you decided those kids were staying, no arguments. Maybe when you spent 3 days fixing the barn roof in the rain because you said it needed doing. Maybe it's been growing this whole time, quiet-like. He met her eyes. But yeah, I care. And that means something. Alara looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. I care about you too. I didn't want to, tried not to, but I do. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was honest, and in that moment, that was enough. So we fight, Caleb said. Together. Whatever that takes. Together, Alara agreed. The next morning, Caleb rode into town. He needed information, and there was only one person he trusted to give it to him straight. Old Pete Harmon was at the freight office, sorting through manifests. He looked up when Caleb walked in, his weathered face creasing into a frown. Rourke, don't usually see you in town midweek. Need to ask you something about a man named Daniel Quinn. Pete's frown deepened. That the fellow been nosing around asking about your wife? You know him? Know of him. He's been staying at the boarding house, spending money like he's got plenty, asking questions about you and Alara, making it known he's got business out your way. Pete set down his papers. What's this about, Caleb? He's Alara's brother. He's trying to force her to go back east with him. She want to go? No, but he's not taking no for an answer. He came out to the ranch yesterday with 2 hired guns. Gave us 3 days to think it over. Pete whistled low. That's a bad situation. Gets worse. He's threatening to bring the sheriff into it. Claims Alara stole from him. Did she? Caleb hesitated, then decided Pete deserved the truth. Yeah, but there's more to it than that. He was selling her to some old man. She took the bride price and ran. Jesus, Pete rubbed his face. That complicates things. Sheriff Barnes is a decent man, but he's also a by-the-book type. If Quinn's got proof of theft, Barnes will have to act on it. Even if the circumstances don't matter, law's the law, and a woman's word don't carry much weight against a man with money and connections. Pete leaned back against the counter. What are you planning to do? I don't know yet. That's why I'm here. You know everyone in this territory. Is there anyone who might help? Anyone who could stand up to Quinn if it comes to that? Pete thought for a minute. There's Judge Hutchins. He's fair, doesn't cotton to bullies. But he's circuit. Won't be back through here for another month. There's the marshal, but he's 3 days' ride south and don't usually get involved in domestic disputes. He paused. Truth is, Caleb, you're on your own here. Quinn knows it too. That's why he's pushing. What would you do? If you were me? Pete looked at him for a long moment. You love her? The question caught Caleb off guard. We haven't been married that long. That's not what I asked. Caleb thought about Alara, her fierce determination, the way she looked at those children like they were precious, the quiet strength she brought to every task, the walls she kept up, and the rare moments when they cracked just enough to let him see through. I could, he said finally. Love her, given time. Then you fight. You fight dirty if you have to, because men like Quinn don't respect honor or decency. They respect power. You need to show him you've got more to lose than he does, and you're willing to lose it all before you let him win. How do I do that? Damned if I know, but you'll figure it out. Pete clapped him on the shoulder. For what it's worth, I like Alara. She's got grit, and she's good for you. I can see it. You look less dead than you did before she came. Caleb left the freight office with more questions than answers. But Pete had given him something useful, confirmation that he was on his own, and permission to stop playing by rules that didn't apply. On the ride back, he passed the McCready place. Sarah McCready was out front, hanging laundry. She waved him down. Caleb Rourke, haven't seen you in months. How's married life treating you? It's treating me fine, Sarah. You? Can't complain. Well, I could, but nobody'd listen. She laughed. Listen, I heard there's been some trouble out your way. Man asking questions about your wife? News traveled fast in small communities. Yeah, it's nothing we can't handle. Well, if you need anything, extra hands, a place for those children to stay if things get rough, you let me know. We take care of our own out here. It was a small thing, but it mattered. Caleb nodded his thanks and continued home. He found Alara in the garden plot, turning over soil even though planting season was still weeks away. She looked up when he approached. Learn anything useful? That we're on our own, that the law won't help us, that people in town are talking. Great. She drove the shovel into the dirt. So what's our plan? I'm working on it. That night, lying in bed, Caleb stared at the ceiling and tried to think. Daniel had leverage. Money, men, the threat of legal action. What did they have? A failing ranch, 2 children, and each other. It wasn't much, but maybe it was enough. The second day passed in tense preparation. Caleb checked the rifle, made sure they had ammunition. Micah helped him reinforce the windows, improvising shutters from spare boards. Alara cooked and canned, putting away supplies like they might need to withstand a siege. Lena stayed close to Alara, her small hand often finding Alara's skirt, holding on. The girl had retreated back into silence, but her eyes watched everything. That evening, as the sun set red and angry across the plains, Alara came to find Caleb in the barn. I've been thinking, she said. That makes 2 of us. What if we turn it around on him? What if instead of waiting for Daniel to make his move, we make ours first? I'm listening. He wants me to come back because I embarrassed him, cost him money and a business deal. But what he really can't stand is losing control. Alara paced, working through her thoughts. What if we make it so staying here is more valuable than dragging me back? What if we offer him something he wants more? We don't have anything he wants more. Don't we? He's a businessman. Everything's a transaction. The money I took, what if we offer to pay it back with interest? We don't have $500. We don't have 50. But we could get it. The bank holds the note on this place. What's the ranch worth? Caleb's stomach sank. You want me to sell the ranch? No. I want us to use it as leverage. Go to the bank, take out a loan against the property, get enough to pay Daniel off and send him on his way. Caleb stopped, thinking. That's just trading one debt for another, and we're already behind on what we owe. I know, but it buys us time, and time is what we need. Time for what? To build something better, to make this ranch profitable. We've got 2 more hands now with Micah and Lena. Come spring, we can plant more, raise more, sell more. We work ourselves to the bone, and we make this place pay. It was ambitious, possibly insane, but Caleb found himself considering it anyway. Even if the bank would lend to us, which they might not, we'd be betting everything on a good season. 1 bad frost, 1 sick herd, 1 wrong move, and we lose it all. We're going to lose it all anyway if Daniel gets his way. At least this gives us a chance. Caleb looked at her. Really looked. At the determination in her face, the steel in her spine, the absolute refusal to give up. She'd survived being sold like property, survived escaping with nothing but stolen money and borrowed courage, survived showing up to marry a stranger in a desperate gamble for freedom. She was the strongest person he'd ever met. All right, he said. We try it your way. Tomorrow, I ride to the bank. See if they'll work with us. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This could still blow up in our faces. Better to go down fighting than on our knees. That night, Caleb couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what they were about to do. The risk, the gamble, the sheer insanity of betting their future on spring planting and the mercy of bankers. But he also thought about the alternative, about Daniel Quinn riding back with his hired guns, about Alara being dragged away, about those children losing the first real home they'd had. Some risks were worth taking. The third morning dawned cold and clear. Caleb rode to town at first light, leaving Alara with the rifle and strict instructions to not open the door for anyone but him. The bank manager, a man named Winters, looked skeptical from the moment Caleb walked in. Mr. Rourke, I wasn't expecting you. I need to discuss my loan and the possibility of extending it. Winters' expression grew more skeptical. You're already 3 months behind on payments. I was actually planning to send you a letter. The bank is concerned about your ability to maintain the property. I know I'm behind, but I've got a plan to turn things around. I just need a little more capital to make it work. Capital for what exactly? Caleb explained about the spring planting, about having extra hands now, about his plans to expand their production. He didn't mention Daniel Quinn or the real reason he needed the money. Some things were better left unsaid. Winters listened with the patience of a man who'd heard 1,000 desperate pitches. Mr. Rourke, I appreciate your optimism, but the bank can't extend credit based on optimism. We need collateral, a solid repayment plan, and evidence that you can manage what you already owe. I've got the land. That's collateral. Land that's mortgaged, land that's producing at a fraction of its capacity, land that frankly isn't worth what you owe on it. Winters softened slightly. I'm sorry. I know you've had a hard time since your wife passed, but sentiment doesn't pay bills. Caleb felt the plan crumbling. What if I had a co-signer, someone to guarantee the loan? Do you? He didn't. He barely knew anyone in town well enough to ask, and those he did know were as broke as he was. I see. Winters stood. Mr. Rourke, I'm going to level with you. The bank has been patient, but patience has limits. If you can't make a payment within the next 30 days, we'll have to begin foreclosure proceedings. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. Caleb left the bank feeling hollowed out. He'd gambled, and he'd lost. Now he had to go home and tell Alara they were out of options. Except he didn't go straight home. He stopped at the saloon, ordered a whiskey he couldn't afford, and sat there trying to figure out what the hell to do next. You look like a man with troubles. Caleb looked up. The speaker was a stranger, mid-50s, well-dressed, with intelligent eyes and the bearing of someone used to making decisions. Just working through some things, Caleb said. Mind if I sit? Caleb shrugged. The man sat, ordered his own drink. Name's Robert Chen. I'm a land assessor, in town evaluating properties for potential investors. You picked a bad time. Most of the ranches around here are barely scraping by, so I've noticed. But that's exactly when smart money moves in. Buy low, wait for the market to recover, sell high. Chen sipped his whiskey. I couldn't help but overhear you talking to Winters at the bank. You're Caleb Rourke, right? Own the old Rourke place north of here? That's right. I actually looked at your property yesterday, rode out, walked the perimeter. Beautiful land, good water access, prime location. Chen paused. Shame it's not being utilized properly. Caleb bristled. I'm doing the best I can. I'm sure you are, but sometimes the best one man can do isn't enough. What you need is capital investment, modern equipment, hired help, a real business plan. Chen leaned forward. I represent some investors back east who are looking to acquire promising properties in developing territories. Your ranch fits the profile. We'd be willing to make you an offer, a generous one. I'm not selling. Hear me out. We'd pay off your existing debt, give you enough cash to start fresh somewhere else, and take over management of the property. You'd walk away free and clear. It was tempting for about half a second. Then Caleb thought about Alara, about the children, about the fragile home they were trying to build. Thanks, but no. That land's been in my family for 20 years. I'm not giving it up. Even if holding on to it means losing it anyway, Winter seemed pretty clear about your situation. I'll figure something out. Chen studied him. You're loyal to a fault, Mr. Rourke. I respect that, but loyalty doesn't pay bills. He pulled out a card, slid it across the bar. In case you change your mind. Offer stands for 30 days. Caleb pocketed the card without looking at it and left. By the time he got home, it was late afternoon. Alara met him at the door, her face tense. Well, bank said no. We're out of time. If we can't make a payment in 30 days, they foreclose. He watched her absorb the news, watched her face go still and closed. Then we use what money we have left and run, tonight, before Daniel comes back. That's not enough money to get far, and you know he'll follow. Then what? We just wait for him to show up tomorrow and take everything? Caleb pulled her inside, closed the door. Micah and Lena were watching from the kitchen, eyes wide. I don't know, he admitted, but running won't fix this. We'd just be delaying the inevitable. Alara's composure cracked. I can't go back with him. I can't. You don't know what they... Her breath hitched. Rather die. I mean that. Hey, Caleb took her shoulders gently. Nobody's dying, and nobody's taking you anywhere. We just need to think. There's nothing to think about. We're trapped. No money, no help, no way out. Daniel's going to come back tomorrow, and we're going to... No. Micah's voice cut across hers. The boy stood up, his young face set hard. No running, no giving up. Micah, this isn't... You said family stays. You said that. Well, we're family now, and families fight for each other. He looked at Caleb. You got weapons, right? More than just the rifles. Some. Not much. Then we use them. When Daniel comes back, we don't talk. We fight. Micah, we'd be outnumbered, outgunned. So, you think I'm afraid to die? I've been afraid of that since I was 5 years old. At least this way it'd be for something that matters. Lena got up and stood next to her brother. She didn't speak, but she didn't need to. Her presence said everything. Caleb looked at these two children, orphaned, scared, but willing to fight, and felt something shift in his chest. They'd been given nothing but loss and betrayal their whole short lives. And here they were, ready to stand. If they could do it, so could he. All right, he said slowly. If it comes to fighting, we fight. But we're smart about it. We use the terrain, the house, every advantage we have. Caleb, Alara started, I'm not letting him take you. I don't care what it costs. You're staying here, and that's final. She looked at him, something complicated in her expression. Fear, gratitude, and maybe, just maybe, the first stirrings of something deeper. They spent that evening preparing. Caleb showed Micah how to load and fire the old pistol he'd inherited from his father. Alara positioned supplies around the house, water, food, medical kit. Lena helped where she could, her small hands steady. As night fell, they gathered in the main room. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the shutters. He might not come tomorrow, Alara said. Might wait us out longer. Or he might come tonight, Caleb replied. They took turns on watch. Caleb took the first shift, sitting by the window with the rifle across his lap. Around midnight, Alara came to relieve him. You should sleep, she said. Can't. She sat beside him. For a while they didn't speak, just listened to the wind and the house settling. I'm sorry, Alara said finally. For what? For bringing this into your life. You'd have been better off without me. That's not true. Isn't it? Before I came, you had problems, sure, but at least they were your problems. Now you're about to fight my brother and possibly die because I was too proud to... Stop! Caleb turned to her. You didn't bring trouble. You brought life back to this place. To me. Before you came, I was just going through motions, waiting to die or lose everything, whichever came first. You gave me a reason to fight, to hope. Don't apologize for that. Caleb, he kissed her. Not gentle, not asking permission, just kissing her because the words weren't enough, and he needed her to understand. She froze for half a second, Then she kissed him back, fierce and desperate, like she was drowning and he was air. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Alara's eyes were bright. "We might die tomorrow," she whispered. "Yeah, we might." "I don't want to die alone." Caleb understood what she was asking. They were married, but they'd never... The arrangement had been practical. Separate rooms, separate lives. "You sure?" he asked. "Yes." They went to his room together, hands clasped. And for the first time since making their desperate bargain, they became husband and wife in truth. Not just on paper, not just in name. It wasn't tender or romantic. It was raw and urgent and tinged with the knowledge that they might not see another dawn. But it was real, and it was theirs. Afterward, lying in the dark, Alara spoke quietly. "If we survive this, I want to really try. At this marriage. At building something that lasts. I want that too. I'm not easy to live with. I'm stubborn and secretive, and I don't trust easily. Neither do I. We'll figure it out." She was quiet for a moment, then, "I think I could love you, given time." Caleb pulled her closer. "That's good, because I think I already do." They fell asleep like that, tangled together, stealing a few hours of peace before the storm. Dawn came too fast. Caleb woke to find Alara already up, getting dressed. In the gray morning light, her face looked carved from stone. "Today's the day," she said. "Yeah." They gathered the children. Micah looked pale but determined. Lena clutched her rag doll like a shield. "Remember the plan," Caleb said. "They come riding in. We try to talk first. If that fails, Micah, you take Lena and get to the root cellar. Lock it from inside. Don't come out until one of us comes for you." "What if nobody comes?" Micah asked. "Then you wait until dark, then run for the McCready place. Sarah will help you." The boy nodded. They didn't have to wait long. Around mid-morning, the riders appeared. 4 this time, not 3. Daniel had brought reinforcements. Caleb's stomach sank, but he didn't let it show. He positioned himself on the porch, rifle ready, but not raised. Alara stood beside him. Daniel rode up slow, that familiar smirk on his face. But there was something different about him today. A hardness. A finality. "Time's up, little sister," he called. "I'm done being patient. You're coming with me. Now. Today." "No," Alara said. "That wasn't a request." Daniel nodded to his men. They started to dismount. Caleb raised the rifle. "That's far enough?" The men froze. Daniel's smirk widened. "What are you going to do, Rourke? Shoot us all? You might get one, maybe 2. Then you're dead, and Alara comes with me anyway. Is that really how you want this to end?" Caleb's finger tightened on the trigger. The math was bad. Daniel was right, but he was also right that Caleb wasn't going to just hand Alara over. "Last chance," Daniel said. "Put down the gun. Step aside. This doesn't have to get bloody." "Go to hell," Caleb said. Daniel sighed. "All right then, boys. Stop right there." The new voice came from behind them. Caleb risked a glance and felt his heart jump. Old Pete Harmon was walking up the road, shotgun in hand. Behind him came Sarah McCready with her husband Tom, both armed. Behind them, more neighbors. The Willis family, the Johnsons, even old Mrs. Chen from the dry goods store. 12 people, all told, all armed, all standing with Caleb and Alara. Daniel's smirk finally faded. "This doesn't concern you people." "Concerns us plenty," Pete said. "The Rourkes are our neighbors. Out here that means something. You want to take Alara, you go through all of us. This is a family matter. Don't look like family to me. Looks like a bully with hired guns trying to drag off a woman who don't want to go." Sarah stepped forward. "We don't take kindly to that." Daniel looked around, calculating odds that had suddenly shifted very much against him. His men were eyeing the crowd nervously. "This isn't over," Daniel said finally. "I'll be back. With the law. With proof of theft. You're all making a mistake." "Maybe," Pete said, "but it's our mistake to make. Now get off this property before we stop being polite." For a long moment, Daniel just stared at Alara. Then he spat in the dirt and turned his horse. "You'll regret this," he said. "All of you." They rode off, and this time Caleb knew it wasn't finished. It was just delayed. But for now they'd won. The neighbors gathered around, accepting thanks, deflecting praise. Sarah hugged Alara, who looked like she might cry but didn't quite manage it. "How did you know?" Caleb asked Pete. "I didn't, but I've been watching the road, saw them riding this way and figured it couldn't be good, gathered who I could." Pete clapped his shoulder. "You got more friends than you know, Rourke. Don't forget that." After everyone left, after the children came out of hiding, after the adrenaline faded and left them all shaking, Caleb and Alara stood on the porch and watched the sunset. "He'll come back," Alara said. "I know. Next time he'll bring more than 4 men. Probably. We can't keep doing this, fighting him off, waiting for the next attack." "I know that too." Alara was quiet. Then, "There's only one way to end this." Caleb looked at her. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking it's time I stopped running. Time I faced Daniel on my terms, not his." "Alara, listen to me. He wants a confrontation? Fine. But it's going to be public, in town, where everyone can see and hear what he really is." Her voice hardened. "I'm going to burn him down, Caleb. His reputation, his credibility, everything. And then he'll have nothing left to threaten us with." "That's risky." "Everything's risky, but I'm done being afraid." Caleb pulled her close. "All right, we do it your way. But we're careful. And we do it together." "Together," she agreed. Inside, the children were setting the table for supper, building routines, building a life. Outside, the threat still loomed, but for the first time, Caleb felt like they might actually have a chance. Not certainty, but hope. And sometimes that was enough. They had 5 days of quiet after the standoff. 5 days where Caleb almost let himself believe Daniel might actually give up and leave. But Alara knew better. She spent those days preparing, planning, sharpening the weapon she'd been forging in her mind since the moment her brother first appeared. On the 6th day, she told Caleb what she needed. "I want you to take me to town, to the saloon, Saturday afternoon when it's full." Caleb looked up from the harness he was mending. "Why the saloon?" "Because that's where the men gather, where reputations are made and broken, where gossip spreads faster than wildfire." Alara's voice was steady, but her hands weren't. She gripped the table edge to hide the tremor. "I'm going to stand up in front of everyone and tell them exactly what Daniel is, what he did, what he planned to do to me." "Alara, it's the only way. He's been spreading his version of the story, I'm sure of it, making himself the wrong brother, me the ungrateful thief. I need to take that narrative away from him before he can use it." "You'll be exposing yourself, everything you ran from." "I know, but silence is what men like Daniel count on. Shame keeping their victims quiet. Well, I'm done being quiet." She finally met his eyes. "I need you to be there, not to speak for me, just to stand with me." Caleb studied her face, reading the fear she was trying to hide beneath determination. "You're sure about this?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Saturday came cold and gray, threatening snow. Alara dressed carefully in her best dress, the one she'd been married in, dark and respectable. She pinned her hair back tight, armor against the world. In the mirror, she looked pale, but composed, like a woman heading to her own execution with her chin up. Micah watched her from the doorway. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." "What if it makes things worse?" "Then at least I went down fighting." She turned to him. "If something happens, if Daniel tries something or I don't come back, you take Lena and go to the McCready's. Don't wait. Don't try to help. Just run. Promise me." The boy's jaw set stubbornly. "I'm not promising that." "Micah, you don't get to make me promise to abandon you. You didn't abandon us." His voice cracked. "We're family. That means something." Alara crossed the room and pulled him into a fierce hug. "It means everything, but it also means protecting each other. Sometimes that looks like running." She felt him nod against her shoulder, but she wasn't sure he'd actually do it if the moment came. The boy had too much of her in him. Stubborn, loyal to a fault, willing to burn rather than bend. The ride to town was tense and quiet. Caleb kept scanning the horizon, hand never far from his gun. Alara focused on breathing, on keeping her hand steady, on not letting the fear win. They arrived just after noon. The main street was busy. Saturday shopping, people catching up on news, the normal rhythm of a frontier town. The saloon sat in the middle of it all, a 2-story building with windows that looked out onto the street. Caleb tied up the horses. "Last chance to change your mind." "I'm not changing my mind." They walked in together. The saloon was packed, exactly as Alara had expected. Men lined the bar. Others sat at tables playing cards or eating lunch. Conversation buzzed loud and boozy. A few heads turned when Alara entered. Women didn't usually come into the saloon, especially not respectable married women, but most ignored her. Until she climbed onto a chair, then onto a table, and the room went dead silent. "My name is Alara Rourke," she said, her voice cutting through the shock. "Some of you know me. Most of you don't. But you've all heard about me by now, I'm sure. The mail-order bride who married Caleb Rourke, the woman with a brother trying to take her back east." Men shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't normal. Women didn't make speeches in saloons. "That brother's name is Daniel Quinn. He's been in town for weeks telling anyone who'll listen that I'm a thief, that I stole from him and ran. And you know what? He's right. I did steal from him, $500. I took it and I ran, and I used it to disappear." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Alara could see Daniel's hired men in the back corner, watching her with hard eyes. "Good. Let them report every word. What Daniel hasn't told you is why I took that money, why I ran." Her voice stayed steady, even as her heart hammered. "He hasn't told you that the money was a bride price, payment from a man named Thomas Whitmore, a wealthy merchant 3 times my age who wanted a young wife. Daniel arranged the marriage without asking me, without caring what I wanted." More murmurs, these ones less certain. A few men looked uncomfortable now. "He hasn't told you what happened when I refused, when I said I wouldn't marry a stranger who could be my grandfather." Alara's hands clenched at her sides. "Thomas had a son, 20 years old. He thought since his father was buying me, he had the right to sample the goods first. He cornered me in Daniel's house, tried to force himself on me. I fought back, broke his knee with a fire poker." The room was dead silent now, every eye on her. Daniel was furious, not because his business partner's son had tried to assault me, but because I damaged the merchandise, made myself less valuable. So he made arrangements, paid a man to educate me, to break me down until I was compliant enough to marry off without causing more trouble. Someone in the crowd swore softly. Alara pushed on, not letting herself stop, not letting the shame choke her. "I found out about his plan 2 days before the man was supposed to arrive. Found the money Daniel had been paid, money that was supposed to compensate him for my upbringing, for the trouble of raising an orphaned sister. I took every dollar, and I ran. Because I knew if I stayed, I'd either end up married to a man who'd bought me like cattle, or I'd end up dead. And I chose life." She looked around the room, meeting eyes, refusing to flinch. "So yes, I'm a thief. I stole money that legally belonged to my brother. But I'm not sorry. I'd do it again, because that money bought me freedom, bought me the chance to choose my own husband, my own life. And if that makes me a criminal in your eyes, so be it. But you should know what kind of man Daniel Quinn really is before you judge me for running from him." She climbed down from the table, her legs shaking so badly she nearly fell. Caleb was there immediately, steadying her. The silence stretched. Then someone in the back, old Pete Harmon, started clapping. Slowly, others joined in. Not everyone. Some men looked scandalized, some looked angry, but enough clapped that Alara felt something loosen in her chest. She'd done it. She'd spoken her truth out loud, and the sky hadn't fallen. They made it halfway to the door before Daniel stepped into their path. He must have been waiting outside, listening. His face was white with rage, but his voice came out smooth and controlled. "Quite a performance, sister, very moving. Almost believed it myself." "It's not a performance, it's the truth." "Your truth, maybe. Funny how you left out the part where you seduced Thomas's son, then cried assault when you got caught. How you've always been manipulative, always playing the victim when things don't go your way." "That's a lie." "Is it? Because I have witnesses who'll say otherwise. Thomas himself will testify that you encouraged his son's attention, that you led him on." "Of course he will. He paid for me. Can't admit he bought damaged goods." Daniel's mask slipped, showing the fury beneath. "You ungrateful little, everything I did was for your benefit. I could have put you in an orphanage after Ma died. Instead, I raised you, fed you, clothed you. And this is how you repay me? You didn't raise me out of love. You raised me because you knew you could sell me eventually. I was an investment. You were family. Family doesn't sell each other." Alara's voice cracked on the last word, and she hated herself for it. Hated that even now, some part of her wanted Daniel to deny it, to say he'd cared about her as more than a commodity. But he didn't. He just smiled, cold and sharp. Family does what's necessary to survive. I'm sorry you're too weak to understand that. Caleb stepped between them. This conversation's over. We're leaving. By all means, run back to your failing ranch and pretend today mattered. Daniel's eyes never left Alara. But the law doesn't care about your sob story. Theft is theft, and I'm pressing charges. Sheriff Barnes will be paying you a visit soon. Hope your little speech was worth it. They pushed past him and out into the street. Alara kept her back straight until they reached the horses, then sagged against the hitching post, breathing hard. Did I just make everything worse? She asked. No, you fought back. That's never a mistake. He's going to use the law against us now. We can't fight that. We'll figure something out. But Caleb's voice lacked conviction, and they both knew it. The ride home was silent and heavy with dread. When they arrived, Micah and Lena ran out to meet them, relief plain on their faces. How'd it go? Micah asked. Hard to say, Caleb replied. But it's done. That night, Alara couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the scene in the saloon, analyzing every word, every reaction. Had she convinced anyone? Or had she just given Daniel more ammunition? Around midnight, she gave up on sleep and went to the kitchen. She found Caleb there, sitting in the dark with a glass of whiskey. Can't sleep either? She asked. Nope. She poured herself a glass and sat across from him. For a while, they just drank in silence. I meant what I said today, Alara said finally. Every word. I know. I'm not ashamed of what I did. Taking that money, running, choosing you. I'd do it all again. I know that too. But I'm sorry I dragged you into this. Sorry the children have to live with this threat hanging over them. Caleb reached across the table, covered her hand with his. Stop apologizing for surviving. You did what you had to do. Anyone with sense can see that. Daniel has money and connections and the law on his side. Sense doesn't matter. Then we'll find another way. There isn't another way. Not anymore. Alara pulled her hand back, stood up, started pacing. He's going to bring the sheriff. Going to have me arrested. Even if I don't get convicted, even if some miracle happens and people believe me over him, the scandal alone will destroy us. The bank will use it as an excuse to foreclose. Our neighbors will distance themselves. We'll lose everything. So what are you saying? She stopped pacing, faced him. I'm saying maybe it's time I leave. Really leave. Disappear so completely Daniel can't find me. That way he has no reason to come after you or the children. You can tell everyone I ran off, abandoned you. You'll be the victim, not the accomplice. No. Caleb, I said no. We're not doing that. We're not splitting up this family because your bastard brother can't accept that you got away from him. This family will be destroyed anyway if I stay. Then we go down together. Caleb stood, matching her intensity. You stood in front of a room full of strangers today and told them your darkest secrets. You think I'm going to let you face what comes next alone? After everything? You're being stubborn. Yeah, well, I learned from the best. Despite everything, Alara almost smiled. Then the weight of it all crashed back down and the moment passed. What if there's no way out? She asked quietly. What if we fight and lose anyway? Then at least we tried. At least we didn't roll over and let him win. Caleb moved closer, took her shoulders gently. Listen to me. I married you because I was desperate and lonely and needed help I couldn't afford. That's true. But somewhere along the way, this stopped being a business arrangement and started being real. You're my wife, not on paper, not for convenience, for real. And I don't abandon the people I love. Alara's breath caught. You love me? Yeah, I do. Probably have for a while now. Just been too stubborn to admit it. She kissed him then, hard and desperate, pouring everything she couldn't say into the contact. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she rested her forehead against his. I love you too, she whispered. That's why I can't let you lose everything because of me. Too late. Already lost my heart to you. Everything else is just details. They stood there in the dark kitchen, holding on to each other like the world was trying to tear them apart. Which, in a way, it was. The sheriff came 3 days later just as Daniel had promised. Sheriff Barnes was a big man, going soft in the middle with tired eyes and the bearing of someone who'd seen too much to be easily shocked. He rode up alone, which Caleb took as a good sign. "Mr. Rourke, Mrs. Rourke," he tipped his hat. "Wish this was a social call." "But it's not," Caleb said. "No, sir. Daniel Quinn filed a formal complaint. Says his sister Alara stole $500 from him and fled across state lines. That's a serious charge." "It's also more complicated than that," Alara said. "I'm sure it is. Most things are." Barnes dismounted, groaning slightly as his knees protested. "Mind if we talk inside? My old bones don't much like the cold anymore." They settled at the kitchen table. Barnes refused coffee, but accepted water. Micah and Lena hovered in the doorway until Caleb sent them outside. "All right," Barnes said. "I've heard Mr. Quinn's version. Now I'd like to hear yours, ma'am." Alora told him everything, just as she'd told the saloon crowd. Barnes listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. "That's a hell of a story, Mrs. Rourke." "It's the truth. I believe you. Problem is, belief and proof are different things. Do you have any evidence? Anyone who can corroborate your account?" "The only people who knew the full story are Daniel and Thomas Whitmore. Neither of them is going to admit to it." "What about the man who assaulted you, Thomas's son?" "I don't even know his name, just that he walks with a limp now." Barnes rubbed his face. "Here's my situation. I've got a formal complaint from a man claiming theft. I've got your word that the circumstances justify it, but no proof. Law's pretty clear about which way I'm supposed to go with that." "So you're arresting me?" "I don't want to, but I might not have a choice." He paused. "Unless, how much of that money do you have left?" "About $30. If you could return the full amount, Quinn might be willing to drop the charges. Satisfied justice has been served." Alara laughed bitterly. "We don't have $500. We barely have 50. That's why this whole thing is happening in the first place." Barnes looked troubled. "Then I'm going to have to take you in, ma'am. I'm sorry." "No!" Caleb's voice came out flat and dangerous. "That's not happening." "Mr. Rourke, don't make this worse. I'm trying to help here." "You want to help? Don't arrest my wife for the crime of escaping slavery." "It's not slavery. It's a legal contract. Contract signed by men selling women who had no say in the matter." "You know that's wrong, Barnes. You know it." The sheriff stood. "My personal feelings don't change the law. I have a job to do." Caleb stood too, hand drifting toward his gun. "And I have a family to protect." "Caleb, don't." Alara's voice cut through the tension. "Don't throw your life away for this." "I'm not letting him take you. You don't have a choice. Neither do I." She looked at Barnes. "How long do I have? To settle my affairs?" "I can give you until tomorrow morning. After that, I'll have to come back with deputies." "That's generous of you." Barnes looked genuinely pained. "For what it's worth, I think Quinn's a snake, and I think you got dealt a bad hand, but I can't pick and choose which laws to enforce based on my feelings." After he left, Caleb paced the kitchen like a caged animal. "We could run, right now, pack up the kids and just go." "And live how? On what money? We'd be fugitives, always looking over our shoulders. That's no life for Micah and Lena. It's better than you rotting in a jail cell. Is it?" Alara sat down heavily. "Maybe this is for the best. Maybe if I turn myself in, cooperate, they'll go easy. Give me a few months, maybe a year. You can keep the ranch, keep the children safe. When you get out, if you get out, you'll come back to ashes. The bank will foreclose. I won't be able to manage alone with 2 kids. Everything we've built will be gone. Then sell it. Take that offer from the land assessor. Get enough money to start fresh somewhere else." Caleb stopped pacing. "What land assessor?" "The one who gave you his card. Chen, I think? I saw it in your pocket when I was washing clothes." Caleb had forgotten about Robert Chen and his offer. He pulled out the card now, looking at it with new eyes. He wanted to buy the ranch. Said his investors would pay off our debts and give us enough to start over. "So do it. Take the money. Take the kids. Build a new life." "Without you?" "I'll find you, somehow, when I'm free." "Alara." "It's the only way, Caleb, please. Don't fight me on this." But before he could answer, the door burst open. Micah stood there, wild-eyed and panting. "Someone's coming. Lots of someones. On horses. They got torches." Caleb grabbed his rifle and ran outside. In the growing dusk, he could see them, a line of riders approaching from the south, maybe 20 strong. Daniel Quinn rode at the front, and even from a distance, Caleb could see he was smiling. "Get the children inside," he told Alara. "Bar the doors." "What are you going to do?" "Whatever I have to." The riders stopped about 50 yards out, forming a semicircle around the house. Daniel dismounted and walked forward alone, torch held high. "Caleb Rourke," he called. "I think we need to have a conversation. A final one." Caleb stepped off the porch, rifle ready. "Say what you came to say." "The sheriff tells me he'll be collecting my sister tomorrow, taking her to stand trial for theft. That's progress, I suppose. But it occurs to me that jail is expensive, trials are expensive, and I'm a businessman. I prefer efficient solutions. Get to the point. I'm willing to drop all charges. Forget the money Alara stole, leave you all in peace. On one condition." "Which is?" Daniel's smile widened. "You sell me this ranch, today, tonight. Sign over the deed and I'll have my lawyer draw up paperwork showing Alara repaid her debt in full. No arrest, no trial, clean slate." Caleb's blood ran cold. This was never about the money. It was about the land. Not the land specifically, but when I was looking for Alara, I did some research. Found out she'd married a rancher who was drowning in debt. Got to thinking about opportunities. This is prime property, Rourke. Worth far more than you're getting out of it. My investors would pay top dollar. Your investors. You're working with Chen. Robert's a valued associate. We've done several deals together. When he told me about your ranch, about your situation, I saw a way to kill two birds with one stone. Get my sister back and acquire valuable property. Daniel's expression hardened. But then you had to complicate things. You and your neighbors playing hero. So now I'm offering you a choice. Sell or watch Alara go to prison for years. Maybe forever, if I press hard enough. You son of a... Careful. I've got 20 men here, all witness to this conversation. You threaten me, you assault me. That's a crime. Sheriff will have to arrest you too. Then what happens to those orphans you're so fond of? Caleb wanted to shoot him. Wanted it so badly his finger trembled on the trigger. But Daniel was right. Shoot him, and the law would come down hard. Not just on Caleb, but on Alara, on the children. "How long do I have to decide?" he asked through clenched teeth. "Until sunrise. After that, the offer expires and I proceed with the charges against Alara, plus a few additional ones I've been holding in reserve. Did you know harboring a fugitive is a crime? So is conspiracy to commit theft. I could make a case that you helped Alara steal from me, that you've been complicit all along. Hard to run a ranch from prison, I'd imagine. You're a real piece of work, you know that. I'm a businessman, and I always collect what I'm owed." Daniel remounted his horse. "Sunrise, Rourke. Think carefully." The riders pulled back but didn't leave. They set up camp on the edge of the property, torches burning, a constant reminder of the threat hanging over them. Inside, Alara was standing by the window, her face white. "I heard." "I'm not selling." "Caleb, I'm not selling our home to that bastard. I don't care what he threatens. It's not just threats. He'll do it. He'll see me rot in prison just to win. Then we fight. We go to the newspapers, to the territorial governor, to anyone who'll listen. We make enough noise that what? That justice magically appears? That powerful men suddenly start caring about women who run from abusive situations?" Alara's laugh was hollow. "You're dreaming. The system isn't built to protect people like me. It's built to protect people like Daniel. So we just give up? Hand him everything? We make the smart choice. Sell the ranch, take what money we can get, disappear before he can change the terms or add more conditions." Caleb stared at her. "You really want me to do this?" "I want you to be smart, to think about what's best for the children. What about what's best for us? There is no us if I'm in prison." They argued through the night, neither budging. Micah and Lena stayed quiet in their room, but Caleb knew they were listening, knew this was teaching them that the world was cruel and unfair and no amount of fighting changed that. Around 3 a.m., Alara finally went quiet. She stood at the window, looking out at the torches, her reflection ghostly in the glass. "My mother used to tell me a story," she said softly, "about a woman who was being chased by monsters. She ran and ran until she came to a cliff. Monsters behind her, drop in front, no way out." Alara paused. "So she jumped, and while she was falling, she noticed a strawberry growing from the cliff face. She picked it and ate it, and it was the sweetest thing she'd ever tasted. I don't understand. Sometimes there's no winning. Sometimes all you can do is find the small sweetness in the moment before the end. She turned to face him. This ranch, these months with you and the children, that's been my strawberry. And if giving it up means you and the kids stay safe, then that's what I choose. Elara, no. Listen, I'm going to turn myself in at dawn. Tell Barnes I'm ready to face charges. Then you're going to sell this place to Daniel or Chen or whoever will pay the most. Take that money and those children and go somewhere he can't find you. I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. Because I'm asking you to. Because it's the only way I can live with what happens next. Caleb crossed the room, pulled her into his arms. She was shaking, he realized. For all her calm words, she was terrified. There has to be another way, he said into her hair. If there is, I can't see it. They stood like that until the first light of dawn started creeping across the horizon. Then Elara pulled away, straightened her spine, and walked toward the door. Caleb grabbed her arm. Wait. For what? It's dawn. Time's up. Just wait, please. She waited. And in that moment of silence, Caleb's mind raced. There had to be something, some angle they hadn't considered, some weapon they hadn't used. Then it hit him. The money, he said. What money? We don't have to... Not ours. The money Daniel wants. What if we could prove he got it illegally? That the whole transaction with Thomas Whitmore was fraudulent or coerced, or we can't prove that. We've been over this. But we don't need to prove it. We just need to make enough doubt that the authorities won't prosecute. Or better yet, we need leverage. Something Daniel wants more than revenge. He doesn't want anything more than revenge. That's what you're not understanding. This isn't business for him anymore. It's personal. Everything's business for men like Daniel. We just need to figure out his price. Before Elara could respond, someone pounded on the door. They opened it to find not the sheriff, but old Pete Harmon, red-faced and out of breath. Don't go out there, he gasped. Don't turn yourself in. Pete, what? I've been in town all night, talking to people, calling in favors, and I found something you need to see. He thrust a folded newspaper at Elara. She opened it, scanned the pages, then froze. What is it? Caleb asked. She showed him. There, in the legal notices section of a Kansas City paper dated 3 months ago, was a notice of bankruptcy proceedings against one Thomas Whitmore, merchant. Assets seized to pay debts. Business dissolved. Thomas is broke, Elara said slowly. He lost everything. Which means the money Daniel got from him, Caleb started, might not have been his to give in the first place, Pete finished. If Thomas was already insolvent when he paid your brother, that transaction could be voided, which means Daniel might not have legal standing to claim theft. It was a thin thread, but it was something. We need to show this to the sheriff, Caleb said. Already did. That's why I'm here. Barnes says it muddies the waters enough that he's not comfortable making an arrest. Says he needs to investigate further before proceeding with charges. Elara sagged with relief. How long does that buy us? Week, maybe 2. But Caleb, this doesn't solve the bigger problem. Daniel's still out there, still has his men, still wants this land, and still wants to punish Elara. Then we use the time to find a permanent solution. Like what? Caleb looked out at the camp of riders, at Daniel Quinn sitting by his fire like a king surveying conquered territory. I'm going to talk to him, one more time. See if we can't find terms we can both live with. That's suicide, Elara said. Maybe, but I'm tired of waiting for him to make the next move. Time we took control of this fight. Before anyone could stop him, Caleb walked out into the dawn toward Daniel's camp. Behind him, he heard Elara calling his name, but he didn't stop. Daniel watched him approach, amused. Come to accept my offer? Come to make one of my own. This should be entertaining. Caleb stopped a few feet away, close enough to see the cold calculation in Daniel's eyes. You want this ranch? Fine. I'll sell it to you, but not for nothing. I offered to drop the charges against Elara. That's not nothing. It's not enough either. You want this land? Here's my price. You drop all charges. You put in writing that Elara's debt is paid in full. You leave town and never contact her again, and you pay fair market value for the property, not fire sale prices. Daniel laughed. Why would I agree to that when I can just wait you out? Let the law do my work for me? Because I'm offering you an easy win. No more fighting. No more risk. No more chances of this blowing up in your face. Caleb leaned in. See, that newspaper article Pete found? That's just the start. We keep digging, we might find more. Might find evidence that your whole deal with Thomas was fraudulent, that you knew he was bankrupt, that you took money under false pretenses. That's speculation, maybe, but speculation's enough to delay legal proceedings, enough to make the sheriff ask questions, enough to get the territorial governor involved. Caleb smiled without humor. And the thing about men like Thomas, men who've lost everything, they tend to talk, might be willing to testify about your business practices in exchange for leniency on their own debts. For the first time, Daniel looked uncertain. You're bluffing. Am I? You willing to bet your reputation on that, your freedom? Because fraud charges don't go away easy, and you've made enough enemies that plenty of folks would love to see you go down. The silence stretched. Then Daniel said, carefully, What exactly are you proposing? A clean break. You get the land. We get enough money to start over somewhere else. Nobody goes to jail. Nobody sues. We all walk away. And if I refuse, then we fight. In court, in the papers, everywhere. Make this so messy and expensive that even if you win, it costs you more than the land's worth. Caleb met his eyes. I'm offering you the easy path, Quinn. I suggest you take it. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, brushed off his pants, and extended his hand. You've got a deal. My lawyer will draw up papers today. Caleb didn't take the hand. Papers first. Then we talk. Fair enough. Daniel's smile returned, sharp and knowing. You're more ruthless than I gave you credit for, Rourke. Almost a shame we're on opposite sides. We're not on opposite sides. We're on no sides. After today, we never see each other again. Suits me fine. I'm a businessman, not a family man. This was only ever about the money. Caleb turned and walked back to the house, his legs feeling like water. He'd done it. Somehow, he'd done it. Inside, Alara grabbed him. Are you insane going out there alone? Probably, but it worked. He explained the deal, watched her face cycle through disbelief, relief, and finally, grief. We're losing the ranch, she said. We're saving our lives. There's a difference. This was your family's land. Your home. Home is where you are, where the kids are. Land is just dirt. He pulled her close. We'll find new dirt. Build something better. She kissed him then, hard and desperate and grateful all at once. By midday, Daniel's lawyer arrived with contracts. Caleb read every word, made changes, negotiated until his head hurt. The final price was less than he'd hoped, but more than Daniel's original offer. Enough to pay off the bank, buy land somewhere else, start over. They signed at sunset. Caleb's hand shook as he wrote his name, watching his family's legacy transfer to the man who'd tried to destroy them. But Alara was free. The children were safe. That had to be enough. Daniel's men began packing immediately. By morning, they'd be gone. The ranch would legally belong to Daniel Quinn, and the Rourkes would be homeless. That night, after the children were asleep, Caleb and Alara sat on the porch one last time. The house they'd fought for, bled for, was no longer theirs. I'm sorry, Caleb said. Don't be. You saved us. I gave up everything my father built. No. You chose what mattered most. That's not giving up. That's surviving. She took his hand. We'll build something new. Something that's ours, not inherited. Something we choose together. Where do we even start? Somewhere Daniel can't find us. Somewhere far enough away that he won't bother looking. She paused. I heard there's land opening up in Oregon. Good soil. Fresh start. Oregon's a long way. Good. They sat in silence, watching the stars come out. In the morning, they'd pack what they could carry and leave. But for tonight, they had this. The porch, the sky, each other. It wasn't the ending Caleb had imagined when he'd ordered a mail-order bride all those months ago. But it was an ending they'd earned, fought for, survived to see. And tomorrow, they'd start writing a new beginning. They left at dawn with everything they owned packed into a single wagon. Caleb had sold most of their possessions to Daniel's men, furniture, tools, anything too heavy or bulky to carry. What remained fit into 6 crates and 4 travel bags, a life reduced to cargo. Micah sat in the back with Lena, both silent, watching the ranch house shrink behind them. The boy's face was hard, holding back tears he wouldn't let fall. Lena clutched her rag doll and buried her face against her brother's shoulder. "We'll come back someday," Micah said quietly. "When we're older. Buy it back." Caleb heard him and didn't have the heart to say what he was thinking, that they'd never see this place again, that some things once lost stayed lost. Instead, he focused on the road ahead, on keeping the horses steady, on not looking back. Elara sat beside him, wrapped in a heavy coat against the morning cold. She hadn't said much since waking, just moved through the motions of packing, of leaving, like she was afraid words would break her apart. "You all right?" Caleb asked after an hour of silence. "No, but I will be." "When?" "When we're far enough away that I can breathe without waiting for Daniel to show up. When the children smile again. When we have land that's really ours, not bought with my freedom." She paused. "Maybe never. I don't know." "Elara, I'm not asking for comfort. I'm just being honest." She looked at him. "You gave up your family home for me. That's not nothing. That's not something I can just say thank you for and move on. You would have done the same. Would I? I ran from Daniel the first time instead of fighting. Took the easy way out. There's nothing easy about what you did. You survived. That takes strength most people don't have." She didn't answer, just turned back to the road. But her hand found his and held on tight. They made it to the next town by evening, a small settlement called Harper's Ferry with a general store, a boarding house, and not much else. Caleb paid for 2 rooms, overpaying because the proprietor looked at them with suspicion. A man, a woman, 2 children with different coloring, all looking road-worn and haunted. "You folks running from something?" the proprietor asked. "Running towards something," Elara corrected. "There's a difference." They ate a silent dinner of stew and bread that none of them tasted. Afterward, Micah helped Caleb tend the horses while Elara got Lena ready for bed. "Where are we going?" Micah asked, brushing down Caleb's gelding with practiced motions. "Oregon Territory, Willamette Valley. I heard there's good land, cheap. Government's encouraging settlement." "How long will it take to get there?" 4 months? Maybe 5. Depends on weather, how fast we travel, whether we run into trouble." Micah was quiet, working the brush in steady circles. Then, "I don't want to go." Caleb stopped what he was doing. "What?" "I said I don't want to go to Oregon. I want to go back, fight Daniel, take back what's ours." "Micah, we just gave up. We had neighbors willing to stand with us. We had evidence about Thomas being broke. We could have fought, and we would have lost. Maybe not right away, but eventually. Daniel has money and connections we can't match. Fighting would have just dragged things out, hurt more people. So we run instead? That's your answer? Just keep running whenever things get hard?" The anger in the boy's voice was sharp enough to cut. Caleb set down his own brush, faced him. "You think I wanted to give up that ranch? That was my father's land. My grandfather's before that. I was born in that house. Buried my wife in that ground. You think leaving doesn't tear me up inside? Then why'd you do it?" "Because keeping it would have cost more than I was willing to pay. Would have meant watching Elara go to prison, watching you and Lena get caught up in legal battles and violence. Land isn't worth that. Nothing is." Micah's face crumpled. "I'm tired of losing things. Tired of having to start over. We just got settled and now we're running again." Caleb pulled him into a rough hug. The boy resisted for a moment, then sagged against him, finally letting the tears come. "I know," Caleb said quietly. "I'm tired too. But this isn't losing. This is choosing what matters most. You, Lena, Elara, you're what matters, not dirt and boards." "Feels like losing." "Yeah, it does." They stood there in the stable until Micah's tears dried up and his breathing steadied. Then the boy pulled back, wiped his face roughly. "Oregon better be worth it," he said. "We'll make it worth it. That's all we can do." Inside, Caleb found Elara sitting on the edge of one of the beds, staring at nothing. Lena was already asleep in the other bed, curled around her doll. "Micah's struggling," he said, sitting beside her. "We all are." He wanted to fight, to go back. Part of me wants that too. The part that's tired of running, tired of letting men like Daniel win. She looked at him. "But I'm more tired of fighting losing battles. Sometimes surrender is the only way to survive." "This isn't surrender. It's a tactical retreat. Is there a difference? I think so. Surrender means giving up. What we did was making a choice. Choosing a future over a past. Ilara's laugh was bitter. Pretty words for losing everything. We didn't lose everything. We lost land. We still have each other. For now. Until the next crisis. Until money runs out or I do something stupid or Daniel decides the deal wasn't enough and comes after us again. Caleb took her hand. You really think that's going to happen? I think men like Daniel don't stop. They just pause. Wait for the right moment to strike again. Then we stay ready. But we don't let fear of what might happen stop us from living. She wanted to argue. He could see it in her face. But she was too exhausted, worn down by months of fighting, of barely surviving. Instead, she just leaned against him. I'm pregnant, she said quietly. The words hit Caleb like a physical blow. What? I've known for a few weeks. Wasn't sure how to tell you with everything else happening. She pulled back to look at him. I'm about 2 months along, I think. Due sometime in early fall. Caleb's mind raced. A baby. They were going to have a baby. In the middle of losing everything, running for their lives, starting over from nothing, they were bringing a child into this chaos. Say something, Ilara said. I don't know what to say. Are you angry? No, He stopped, trying to find the right words. I'm terrified, and maybe a little bit happy, but mostly terrified. Me too. Her hand went to her stomach, protective. I know the timing's terrible. We're homeless, nearly broke, heading into the wilderness. But I'm not sorry. I want this baby. Want to build something real with you. Caleb pulled her close, felt her trembling against him. We'll figure it out, somehow. You keep saying that. Because I have to believe it's true. Otherwise, what's the point? They held each other in the dim lamplight, two people clinging to hope in the face of overwhelming odds. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the window. Winter was coming, and they had a long road ahead. The next morning, they continued west. Days blurred together, cold mornings, long hours on the road, simple meals cooked over campfires. They passed through small towns where people looked at them with curiosity or suspicion. They crossed rivers swollen with early snowmelt. They climbed hills that seemed to go on forever. Micah slowly came out of his anger, focusing his energy on helping Caleb with the horses and wagon. Lena stayed close to Ilara, chattering now in her small voice about things she saw. Birds, unusual rocks, cloud shapes. The girl's voice was still rusty, but it was there, growing stronger. 3 weeks into their journey, they stopped in a larger town called Bellevue to resupply. Caleb was at the general store, pricing flour and beans, when a man approached him. You Caleb Rourke? Caleb's hand went to his gun. Who's asking? The man held up his hands, showing he was unarmed. Easy. I'm not here to cause trouble. Name's James Morrison. I'm a land agent for the Willamette Valley Settlement Company. How do you know my name? Got a letter from Pete Harmon back in your old territory. Said you might be heading our way, looking for land. Asked me to keep an eye out, make sure you got a fair deal. Caleb relaxed slightly. That sounded like Pete. All right, I'm listening. Morrison pulled out a map, spread it on the store counter. We've got several parcels opening up come spring. Good soil, reliable water, close enough to other homesteads for community, but far enough for privacy. Government's offering 160 acres to anyone willing to work it, plus we've got additional land available for purchase, if you want more. What's the catch? No catch. Just hard work. Land's raw. You'll need to clear it, build on it, prove it up. But if you can handle that, it's yours. Caleb studied the map. The parcels were in a valley surrounded by mountains, cut through by a river. On paper, it looked perfect. Too perfect. Why's the government giving away good land? Because it's a long way from civilization, and most folks don't want to work that hard. They'd rather buy developed property closer to towns. Morrison met his eyes. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. It's tough out there. Winters are harsh, growing seasons short, you'll be mostly on your own. But if you can stick it out, you'll have something real, something nobody can take from you. Except the government. Except the government, Morrison agreed. But if you file proper claims, work the land for 5 years, it's yours free and clear. That's the homestead law. Caleb thought about it. 5 years of backbreaking work. 5 years of isolation. But at the end, land that truly belonged to them. I need to talk to my wife. Take your time. I'll be in town through tomorrow. Caleb bought his supplies and headed back to the boarding house where Alara was resting. She'd been sick that morning, the pregnancy making her nauseous and tired. He found her sitting up in bed looking pale but determined. "How you feeling?" "Like I want to throw up, but my stomach's too empty to bother." She managed a weak smile. "What'd you find out?" He told her about Morrison, about the land offer, about what it would require. She listened quietly, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. 5 years is a long time, she said when he finished. "Yeah. And we'd be starting from nothing again, building everything ourselves." "Yeah. No neighbors close by. No help if things go wrong. There'd be other homesteaders, just not right on top of us." Alara was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Tell me honestly, do you think we can do it? With a baby coming, with winter approaching, with everything we've been through?" Caleb sat on the edge of the bed. "Honestly, I don't know. It's going to be hell. We might fail. Might lose everything again. But at least it would be ours, our choice, our land, our future. Nobody could sell it out from under us or use it as leverage. Unless we can't make it work and have to abandon the claim. There's that risk, yeah." She looked at him with those riverstone eyes that had first caught his attention months ago. "You want to do this, don't you, despite everything? I want to build something with you, something that lasts. If that means 5 years of hard labor in the middle of nowhere, then yeah, I want to do it." Alara's hand covered his. "All right, let's do it. Let's claim our piece of Oregon and see what we can make of it." They met with Morrison the next day and filed preliminary claims on 160 acres in the Willamette Valley. Morrison gave them maps, advice on the best routes, and letters of introduction to other homesteaders already there. "You'll want to arrive before spring planting if you can," he said. "Gives you time to get established, build shelter, prepare the ground. Winter's going to be rough, but if you can get through it, you'll be in good shape come growing season." "What about the baby?" Alara asked. "I'm due in the fall. Is there a doctor nearby?" Morrison's expression turned sympathetic. "Nearest doctor's about 3 days' ride, but there's a woman, Sarah Blackwood, who's delivered most of the babies in the valley. She's good, experienced. I'll make sure she knows you're coming." 3 days to a doctor. Alara's face went pale, but she nodded. "We'll manage." They left Bellevue the next morning with renewed purpose. The vague idea of Oregon had become concrete, a specific piece of land, a real goal. The journey felt less like running and more like moving toward something. But the reality of what they were attempting didn't fully hit until they reached the mountain pass 6 weeks later. The snow was deep, deeper than Caleb had seen in years. The wagon struggled, wheels catching in drifts, horses straining against the weight. Twice they had to unload everything and carry it forward on foot, then come back for the wagon. Micah worked until his hands bled, never complaining. Lena huddled in blankets in the wagon bed, too cold to do more than shiver. Alara tried to help despite Caleb's protests, her pregnancy making her clumsy and short of breath in the thin mountain air. On the third day in the pass, disaster struck. The wagon wheel caught on a hidden rock and cracked, splitting down the middle. They were stranded on a narrow mountain road with night coming fast and temperatures dropping. "Can you fix it?" Alara asked, her teeth chattering. Caleb examined the damage. "Not here. Not with what we've got. We'd need proper tools, dry wood for a replacement spoke." "So what do we do?" "We camp here tonight. Tomorrow I'll take one of the horses, ride ahead to the nearest settlement, see if I can get help." "That could take days." "You got a better idea?" She didn't. They set up the best camp they could, using the wagon as a windbreak, building a fire with what dry wood Micah could scavenge. The temperature dropped below freezing as the sun set, and the wind cut through their clothes like knives. Lena started coughing around midnight, a deep rattling sound that scared Caleb. Alara held her close, trying to keep her warm, but the girl's forehead burned with fever. "She needs a doctor," Alara said. "I know, but there's nothing I can do about it tonight." "So we just wait? Let her get sicker?" "What else can we do? We're stuck on a mountain in a blizzard with a broken wagon." The fear in his voice matched the fear in hers. They were in real trouble now, and they both knew it. Micah sat by the fire, his young face aged by worry. "This is my fault. I should have seen that rock, warned you before the wheel hit it. It's nobody's fault, Caleb said. It's just bad luck. Seems like we've had a lot of that lately. He wasn't wrong. Caleb looked around at their desperate situation. Broken wagon, sick child, pregnant wife, dwindling supplies, trapped in a mountain pass with winter closing in, and wondered if they'd finally pushed their luck too far. But giving up wasn't an option. So he added more wood to the fire, made sure everyone was as warm as possible, and started planning for morning. Dawn came gray and cold. Lena's fever had worsened overnight. She barely woke when Alara tried to give her water. I'm going now, Caleb said, saddling the stronger of their two horses. There's a settlement marked on Morrison's map about 15 miles down the western slope. If I ride hard, I can make it by midday, be back with help by tomorrow. And if you can't? Then I'll send someone else back while I get what we need to fix the wagon. He kissed her roughly. Keep her warm. Keep the fire going. Don't let it die. I know how to tend a fire, Caleb. I know, I just... He stopped, all the fear and frustration choking him. I can't lose any of you, not after everything. Then ride fast. He did. Pushed the horse harder than he should have, racing against time and weather and the fever burning through that little girl. The settlement, when he finally reached it, was barely a dozen buildings clustered around a crossroads, but it had a general store, and the proprietor knew someone with wagon repair skills. Silas Johnson's your man. Lives about 2 miles north. He can fix just about anything. Caleb found Johnson, a grizzled man in his 60s with hands like old leather, and explained the situation. Broken wagon wheel in the pass with a sick child and pregnant woman? That's bad. Johnson scratched his beard. I can fix the wheel, but getting up there in this weather is going to be rough. I'll pay whatever you ask. It's not about money. It's about whether we can make it there and back without getting ourselves killed. Johnson studied the darkening sky. Storm's coming in. Big one. We go up there now. We might all end up trapped. I can't leave them up there alone. I'm not saying you should. I'm saying we need to be smart about this. Johnson grabbed his coat. We'll go now. Work through the night if we have to. But if that storm hits before we get there, we're in trouble. They loaded supplies onto a mule and started climbing. The wind picked up as they ascended, bringing the smell of snow. By the time they reached the camp, 3 hours later, the first flakes were falling. Alara ran out to meet them, relief and fear warring on her face. Lena's worse. She's not responding. Caleb rushed to the wagon. The girl lay still, her breathing shallow and labored. Her skin was gray. We need to get her down the mountain, Johnson said, examining her quickly. She's got pneumonia or something close. Needs proper medicine, warmth, rest. The wagon. Forget the wagon. We take her on the mule, wrap her warm, move as fast as we can. You folks can come back for your things when the weather clears. We can't just abandon everything we own. You want your stuff or you want that child to live? Choose. It wasn't really a choice. They bundled Lena in every blanket they had, secured her to the mule, and started down. Johnson led, knowing the trail even in the gathering storm. Caleb followed with Micah on the horse. Alara brought up the rear on the remaining horse, moving carefully despite her exhaustion. The storm hit in full force an hour later, snow so thick they could barely see 3 feet ahead, wind that threatened to knock them off their feet. The temperature dropped until even breathing hurt. Johnson never wavered. He kept them moving, kept them together, navigated by instinct and experience through conditions that would have killed them without his guidance. They made it to the settlement just before midnight, half frozen and completely spent. Johnson's wife took one look at Lena and took charge, getting the girl warm and dry, forcing medicine down her throat, tending her with practiced efficiency. She'll live, Mrs. Johnson pronounced after an hour. But it was close, and another few hours and you would have lost her. Caleb nearly collapsed with relief. Beside him, Alara did collapse, catching herself on a chair, her face white. You all right? He asked. Just tired and scared, and... She winced. I think I might be bleeding. Mrs. Johnson moved fast, getting Alara into bed, examining her with gentle efficiency. When she emerged, her face was grave. The baby? Still there. Still has a heartbeat. But she's spotting, and that's not good. She needs complete rest for at least a week. No travel, no stress, no heavy lifting. Can we stay here? We've got a spare room. You're welcome to it as long as you need. They stayed for 2 weeks in the end. Lena recovered slowly, her fever breaking on the third day. Alara rested, the bleeding stopping, the baby holding on. Micah helped Johnson around the property, learning skills and earning their keep. Caleb used the time to repair the wagon wheel with Johnson's help, then hired men to haul their abandoned supplies down from the pass. By the time they were ready to move on, winter had fully set in, and Johnson advised them to wait until spring. You've got 3 months to plan, to rest, to prepare. Come April, you'll be stronger and ready to tackle homesteading. Go now, and you're just asking for more trouble. It made sense, but it chafed. 3 more months of delay, 3 more months living on charity and borrowed space. Caleb wanted to push on, to reach their land, to start building. But one look at Alara, still pale and fragile, at Lena still coughing sometimes, and he knew Johnson was right. All right, we stay. But come spring, we go, no matter what. Those 3 months proved to be a gift in disguise. The Johnsons were good people, kind without being smothering, helpful without making them feel like charity cases. They had a small farm, enough land to be self-sufficient, and they taught the Rourkes everything they knew about surviving in Oregon Territory. Mrs. Johnson taught Alara about local plants, which ones were edible, which were medicinal, which would kill you if you weren't careful. She showed her how to preserve food for long winters, how to make soap and candles, how to deliver a baby without a doctor present. Johnson taught Caleb and Micah about building, how to construct a cabin that would withstand mountain winters, how to clear land efficiently, how to read weather and soil and know what would grow where. Slowly, the fear that had driven them across half a continent began to ease. They were still scared, of failure, of loss, of all the things that could go wrong. But they were also learning, preparing, becoming people who might actually succeed at this impossible task they'd set themselves. Lena regained her strength and her voice, chattering constantly now about everything she learned. Micah grew taller, filling out with good food and steady work. Alara's pregnancy progressed, her belly rounding, the baby growing strong despite the rough start. And Caleb found himself thinking less about what they'd lost and more about what they were building. One evening in early March, sitting on the Johnsons' porch watching the sun set, Alara leaned against him. "I think we're going to make it," she said quietly. "Yeah?" "Yeah, I can see it now. The land, the cabin, the life we're going to build, it's real, not just a desperate hope." "What changed?" "We did. We're not the same people who left that ranch. We're stronger, smarter, more prepared." She paused. "We're family, real family, not just people thrown together by circumstance." Caleb pulled her closer, felt the swell of her belly against his side. "When did that happen?" "Somewhere between losing everything and deciding to fight for something better. Somewhere in the middle of all the fear and pain and struggle." She looked up at him. "I love you, Caleb Rourke. Not because you saved me or because we're married, but because you're you. Because you chose us over land. Because you keep getting up every time we get knocked down." "I love you too. Have for a while now." "I know, I could see it, even when I was too scared to believe it." They sat there until the stars came out, planning their future, dreaming their dreams. Behind them, through the window, they could hear Micah teaching Lena a song Johnson had taught him. The sound of children laughing, safe and warm and loved. Spring came with a rush of green and the smell of wet earth. The Johnsons helped them load the wagon, pressed food and supplies on them, made them promise to come back and visit. "You're good people," Johnson said, shaking Caleb's hand. "You'll do fine out there. Just remember what we taught you. We won't forget any of it." They set out on a morning so clear and bright it hurt to look at. The road west was muddy but passable. The mountains were behind them now, the valley opening up ahead. Their land, when they finally reached it 2 weeks later, was everything Morrison had promised and nothing like they had imagined. The reality of 160 acres of wild, uncleared forest was overwhelming. "Where do we even start?" Micah asked, looking around at the dense trees. "One tree at a time," Caleb said. "One day at a time." They pitched a tent that first night, too exhausted to do more. But the next morning, Caleb and Micah started clearing, cutting trees, hauling logs, marking out where the cabin would go. Alara, too pregnant now for heavy work, organized their supplies and started a garden plot, turning over soil that maybe hadn't been touched by human hands before. Lena collected rocks and arranged them into borders, helped Alara plant seeds, sang to herself in her high, clear voice. Days turned into weeks. The cabin took shape, rough logs notched together, a roof of split shingles, a chimney made of river stones. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't even particularly comfortable, but it was theirs. They finished it in early June, just as Alara's pregnancy entered its final months. She could barely move now, her belly huge, her back aching constantly. But she never complained, just kept working within her limits, kept pushing toward their shared goal. Other homesteaders started appearing as summer progressed, neighbors scattered across the valley, all working their own claims. They helped each other when they could, shared tools and knowledge, started building the kind of community that could survive in isolation. And slowly, impossibly, the Rourkes started to thrive. The garden produced. The chickens they'd bought laid eggs. The cow they'd traded for gave milk. It wasn't easy. Nothing was easy, but it was working. In late August, Alara went into labor 3 weeks early. Caleb rode hard for Sarah Blackwood, the midwife Morrison had mentioned, and brought her back just as Alara's contractions became urgent. The birth was long and difficult. Alara labored through the night and into the next day, her screams filling the small cabin. Caleb held her hand, helpless and terrified, while Sarah worked with calm efficiency. Finally, just as the sun was setting on the second day, a baby's cry split the air. "It's a girl," Sarah announced, holding up a tiny red-faced infant, small but healthy, good lungs. Alara collapsed back against the pillows, exhausted and relieved. Caleb looked at his daughter, their daughter, and felt something break open in his chest. "She's perfect," he said. "She's ours," Alara corrected, reaching for the baby. "That's better than perfect." They named her Martha, after Caleb's first wife. It felt right, felt like honoring the past while building the future. Micah and Lena were entranced by their baby sister, fighting over who got to hold her, who got to help. The family they'd cobbled together from desperation and hope had added another member, and somehow, impossibly, they were making it work. As September turned to October, Caleb stood on the porch of their cabin one evening, looking out over the land they were slowly taming. Behind him, he could hear Alara singing to the baby, Micah and Lena arguing over some game, the ordinary sounds of a family living. They'd lost everything to get here, given up land, security, the lives they'd known. But they'd gained something more valuable: freedom, choice, a future they were building with their own hands. It wasn't the life Caleb had imagined when he'd written that desperate letter asking for a mail-order bride. It was better. Harder, messier, more uncertain, but real in a way nothing else had ever been. Alara joined him on the porch, the baby asleep against her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How far we've come, how much further we have to go." "Are you happy?" Caleb thought about it. Happy wasn't quite the right word. They were too tired, too worried about money and weather and all the things that could still go wrong. But they were also content in a way he'd never been before. Settled. Whole. "Yeah," he said finally. "I am. Are you?" "Getting there. Ask me again in 5 years when we've proved up this claim and it's really ours. I'll still be asking you then." "Good." She leaned against him, and they watched the sun set over their land, their future, their hard-won life. It wasn't the ending they'd expected, but it was the beginning they'd earned. The first winter on their claim tested everything they thought they knew about survival. Snow came in November and didn't stop until March, burying the valley under drifts that reached the cabin windows. The wind howled through gaps in the logs they'd missed, and no matter how much wood Caleb and Micah cut, the cold found its way inside. Baby Martha caught a fever in January that had Alara up for 3 nights straight, rocking her by the fire, singing songs through tears of exhaustion and fear. The fever broke on the 4th morning, and Alara collapsed into bed, sleeping for 16 hours while Caleb took over all her duties and wondered how she'd managed to do this much every single day. They ran low on flour in February, then sugar, then coffee, which Caleb missed more than he wanted to admit. Their nearest neighbor was the Whitman family, 5 miles east, and when Caleb rode over to see if he could trade for supplies, he found them in worse shape than the Rourkes. "Lost half our chickens to a fox," Tom Whitman said, his face gaunt with worry, "and the cow's gone dry. Don't have much to spare." "I understand, just thought I'd ask. How's your family holding up?" "We're making it, barely." Whitman studied him. That's more than most can say their first winter. You got grit, Rourke. You and your wife both. Caleb rode home empty-handed, but somehow feeling better. They weren't failing, they were just doing what everyone else was doing, which was surviving by their fingernails and calling it progress. Spring came late and grudging. When the snow finally melted, they found damage they hadn't expected. Part of the chicken coop roof had collapsed, 3 fence posts had rotted through, and the garden plot had washed out in the runoff. "Well," Alara said, surveying the destruction with Martha strapped to her chest. "At least we're still standing." "That's one way to look at it." "It's the only way. We start fixing what's broken, same as always." They did. Caleb and Micah rebuilt the coop, reinforced the fence, redug the garden. Alara planted everything that would grow in their short season: beans, squash, potatoes, carrots. Lena helped where she could, her small hands getting stronger, her confidence growing. The girl had started talking more, sometimes whole sentences at a time. One morning in April, she looked up from helping Alara plant and said, "This is home now, isn't it? We're not leaving." Alara paused, considering the question seriously. "That's right. This is home, for as long as we want it to be." "Good. I was tired of leaving places." "Me too, sweetheart, me too." By May, other homesteaders started emerging from their winter isolation. The Whitmans came to visit, bringing their 3 children who played with Micah and Lena like they'd been starved for company, which they had been. Sarah Blackwood stopped by to check on Martha and stayed for dinner, sharing news from across the valley. "The Hendersons abandoned their claim," she said. "Couldn't make it through the winter. Packed up and left last week." "Where'd they go?" Caleb asked. "Back east, I heard. Said this life was too hard, too lonely." Sarah looked around the Rourke cabin, taking in the well-stocked shelves, the children playing, the baby sleeping peacefully. "You folks seem to be managing better than most." "We work at it," Alara said simply. "It shows. How much longer until you can prove up the claim?" 4 more years, sometimes feels like forever. It'll go faster than you think, and then this land is yours. Nobody can take it from you." After Sarah left, Caleb found Alara standing outside, looking at the fields they'd cleared, the cabin they'd built, the life they were carving out of wilderness. "You thinking about what she said?" he asked. "About the land being ours? I'm thinking about how strange it is. We lost everything running from Daniel, gave up your family's ranch, and now we're here, working ourselves to death for land that won't legally be ours for 4 more years. Makes you wonder if we're just stubborn or stupid." "Maybe both. Does it matter?" She smiled at that. "No, I suppose it doesn't. As long as we're together, as long as the kids are safe and fed and growing, the rest is just details." Summer brought its own challenges. The heat was intense, the work endless. They cleared more land, planted more crops, built a proper barn. Micah, now nearly 10, worked like a man, his thin frame developing muscle, his hands calloused and capable. He never complained, but sometimes Caleb caught him staring east, toward where they'd come from, and wondered what the boy was thinking. One evening, working side by side to repair a section of fence, Caleb finally asked, "You miss it? The old ranch?" Micah was quiet for a long moment. "Sometimes. Mostly I miss feeling settled, like we belonged somewhere and weren't just fighting to survive." "You don't feel settled here." "I don't know what I feel. This place is hard. Everything's hard, and I keep waiting for something bad to happen. For us to lose this too." Caleb set down his hammer. "That's fair. We've lost a lot. Learn not to trust good things to last." "How do you stop feeling that way?" "Not sure you do. But maybe that's not the worst thing. Maybe staying a little scared, a little ready to fight. Maybe that's what keeps us sharp, keeps us from getting complacent." Micah considered this. Alara says something similar, says the fear keeps us honest. "She's smarter than both of us put together." The boy smiled at that, and they went back to work. But something had shifted between them, a recognition that they were both carrying the same weight, the same wariness. It didn't make the burden lighter, but it made it more bearable, knowing they weren't carrying it alone. In August, a circuit preacher came through offering to perform proper marriage ceremonies and baptisms for those who wanted them. Several families took him up on it, making legitimate what had been practical arrangements. Alara surprised Caleb by saying she wanted to renew their vows. We're already married, he pointed out. We're married on paper, but the first time was a transaction. I want to choose you again, properly, with the kids watching, so they know this is real. They stood in front of the preacher on a Sunday morning with half the valley watching. Micah held Martha, who was chewing on her fist and drooling. Lena stood between Caleb and Ilara, holding both their hands. Do you, Caleb Rourke, take Ilara to be your wife, in plenty and in want, in joy and in sorrow, as long as you both shall live? I do. And do you, Ilara Rourke, take Caleb to be your husband, in plenty and in want, in joy and in sorrow, as long as you both shall live? I do. The preacher smiled. Then I pronounce you again husband and wife. What's been bound twice stays bound. This time when Caleb kissed her, it wasn't awkward or perfunctory. It was real and deep and full of everything they'd survived together. The small crowd cheered and Lena giggled, and Martha let out a wail that broke the moment and made everyone laugh. That night, lying in bed with Martha asleep in her cradle and the older children finally settled, Ilara turned to Caleb. Thank you for today. For what? You're the one who wanted it. For making it mean something, for not just going through the motions. She paused. The first time we got married, I was running. From Daniel, from everything. I chose you because you were far away and asked no questions. But today I chose you because I love you, because I can't imagine doing this life with anyone else. Even though it's hard? Especially because it's hard. Easy doesn't teach you anything, doesn't show you who people really are. She reached for his hand. I know who you are now, Caleb Rourke, and I'd choose you every time. Good, because you're stuck with me. I can think of worse fates. Fall came with harvest. Not a huge yield, but enough to see them through winter with some to spare. They'd learned from their first year, prepared better, stored more. The cabin was tighter, the barn was finished, they had proper winter clothes for everyone. And then in late October, a letter arrived. The postal rider came through once a month, delivering mail to the scattered homesteads. Caleb was mending harness when he heard the rider approach. Letter for Rourke, the man called. From back east. Caleb's stomach dropped. Nobody from back east should be writing them. He took the letter with hands that weren't quite steady. The return address said Kansas City. The handwriting was unfamiliar. He opened it standing in the yard, not wanting to bring whatever this was into the house. The letter was from a lawyer named Harrison Webb. Caleb read it twice, then a third time, trying to make sense of the words. Daniel Quinn was dead. Killed in a fire that had destroyed the ranch he'd bought from Caleb. The fire had been ruled accidental, a knocked-over lantern, but there were questions. Debts Daniel had accumulated, business deals gone wrong, people who might have had reason to want him dead. But that wasn't the part that made Caleb's hands shake. The lawyer was writing because Daniel's will left everything to his sister, Ilara. The ranch that had been taken from them was now legally theirs again, if they wanted it. Along with what remained of Daniel's estate, not much after debts were settled, but something. Caleb walked into the house in a daze. Ilara was nursing Martha, singing softly. She looked up when he entered. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Daniel's dead. The singing stopped. Ilara's face went very still. What? He handed her the letter. She read it one-handed, Martha still at her breast, her expression unreadable. He left me the ranch, she said finally. The ranch you sold to him. He's giving it back. Technically, you inherited it. That's not the same as him giving it back. Isn't it, though? She looked at Caleb. He could have left it to anyone. A business partner, a mistress, charity. But he left it to me, his estranged sister who he spent months trying to drag back to a life she'd escaped. Maybe he felt guilty. Daniel didn't feel guilt. He felt entitlement and rage, but never guilt. Ilara set the letter aside, adjusted Martha to her other breast. This is his final play, his last attempt to control me. He's offering me everything I ran from, knowing I might be desperate enough to take it. Are you? Desperate enough? She looked around the cabin, small and drafty and cobbled together from hope and determination, looked at her children, at her husband, at the life they'd built with nothing but stubbornness and love. No, she said firmly. That ranch isn't ours anymore. It stopped being ours the day we chose to leave, and I don't want it back. It's worth money, good money. We could sell it, use the proceeds to improve this place, buy better equipment, hire help, make life easier. Or we could keep doing what we're doing, building something that's completely ours, something nobody gave us, nobody can take away. She met his eyes. I don't want Daniel's leftovers, Caleb. I don't want anything that ties us back to that life. Do you? He thought about it honestly. The ranch had been his family's legacy, his birthright. Getting it back should feel like justice, like winning, but it didn't. It felt like a trap. No, he said. I don't want it either. Then we tell the lawyer to sell it. Settle Daniel's debts. Whatever's left can go to charity or the state or whoever handles these things. We want no part of it. Caleb wrote the response that evening, making their wishes clear. The ranch could be sold to pay Daniel's obligations. They wanted nothing from his estate, claimed no inheritance, wished only to be left alone. He posted it the next day and felt lighter for it. We could have been rich, Micah said when he heard. The boy had been listening from the doorway, taking it all in. Could have gone back, lived easy. Easy isn't always better, Ilara told him. And that ranch was never really ours, not the way this place is. But you worked for it, both of you. Doesn't that count? It counts. But so does knowing when to let go. When to choose the future over the past. Micah absorbed this, his young face serious. When I'm older, I'm going to build something too. Something nobody can take from me. I know you will, Ilara said, and we'll be here to help. Winter came again, but this time they were ready. They had food, fuel, warm clothes, experience. When the snow piled up and the wind howled, they stayed inside playing games, telling stories, teaching the children to read and figure. Martha took her first steps in February, wobbling across the cabin floor into Caleb's arms. Lena started teaching her simple words, delighted to be the teacher for once instead of the student. Micah grew another 3 inches, shooting up so fast they had to let out all his pants twice. He was becoming a young man, thoughtful and serious, carrying responsibilities beyond his years. And slowly, inexorably, they moved from surviving to living. Spring of their 3rd year brought new neighbors, the Morrison family, who'd bought the Henderson claim. They had 2 sons close to Micah's age, and the boys became fast friends. Suddenly, the valley felt less isolated, more like a real community. They started gathering for barn raisings and harvests, helping each other with the work no single family could manage alone. They celebrated birthdays and holidays together, creating traditions where none had existed. Ilara, to her surprise, found herself at the center of it. The other women came to her with questions about childbirth, about medicine, about surviving hardship. She became the unofficial leader without trying, simply by being herself, competent, honest, unafraid of hard truths. You're good at this, Caleb told her one evening after hosting a gathering that had filled their small cabin to bursting. Building community, making people feel like they belong. I know what it's like not to belong, to be alone and scared and desperate. I don't want anyone else to feel that way if I can help it. You're talking about before you came here. I'm talking about everything. The years with Daniel, running, even those first months with you when I didn't know if I could trust you or what we were building. She looked at him. I spent so long focused on survival that I forgot what living felt like. These people, this community, they remind me, make me want to give back what was given to me. Which is? A chance, hope, the knowledge that even when everything falls apart, you can build something new if you're willing to work for it. Year 4 brought a drought. The spring rains never came, and by June the crops were withering in the fields. The valley banded together, sharing water from the deeper wells, rationing what they had, helping those hit hardest. The Rourke's garden struggled, but the well Caleb had dug deep held steady. They shared their water with the Whitmans, whose well had gone dry. Tom Whitman tried to pay them. Keep your money, Caleb said. You do the same for us. Still, seems like we're always taking from you folks. That's what neighbors do. Take when they need, give when they can. Evens out over time. It did even out. When the Rourke's barn needed a new roof the following spring, the Whitmans showed up with lumber and labor, refusing payment. When Lena got sick with scarlet fever, Sarah Blackwood came and stayed for a week, nursing her through the worst of it and asking nothing in return. They were building more than homes and farms. They were building the kind of interdependence that made survival possible, that turned isolated homesteaders into something like family. In their 5th year, the year they'd prove up their claim and own the land free and clear, Alara discovered she was pregnant again. Are you happy about it? Caleb asked when she told him. I'm terrified. Martha's barely 3. I'm not young anymore, and we're already stretched thin. She paused. But yes, I'm happy. This baby won't be born out of desperation or fear. It'll be born into something real, something we built together. What if something goes wrong? Then we deal with it, same as everything else. She took his hand. Stop looking for disasters around every corner. We're going to be fine. She was right. The pregnancy went smoothly. The harvest that fall was the best they'd had, enough to sell surplus in town and actually make money instead of just breaking even. In November, Caleb rode to the land office and filed the final paperwork proving up their claim. The clerk stamped the documents and handed him a deed. Congratulations, Mr. Rourke. You're now the legal owner of 160 acres in the Willamette Valley. Land's yours free and clear. Caleb stared at the paper in his hands. After 5 years of backbreaking work, of barely surviving, of wondering if they'd make it, this piece of paper said they had, said they owned something that couldn't be taken away. He rode home in a daze and found Alara waiting on the porch, huge with pregnancy, Martha clinging to her skirts. Well? She asked. He held up the deed. It's ours. Really, legally ours. Her face broke into a smile that could have lit the whole valley. We did it. Yeah, we did. They stood there grinning at each other like fools, while Martha demanded to know what was happening, and Micah and Lena came running from the barn, wanting to see the paper that meant so much. That night they had a small celebration, nothing fancy, just the family together, acknowledging what they'd accomplished. Micah, now 13 and nearly as tall as Caleb, made a toast with watered-down cider. To family, to home, to never giving up even when everything's falling apart. To stubborn people doing impossible things, Alara added. To us, Caleb finished. However we got here, whatever we had to survive, we made it. Together. They drank to that, and for the first time in 5 years, Caleb let himself fully believe they were going to be all right. The baby came in January, early but healthy. A boy they named Peter, after old Pete Harmon, who'd helped them when they needed it most. The birth was easier than Martha's, and Alara recovered quickly, determined not to let a new baby slow her down. With Peter's arrival, their family felt complete. 2 biological children, 2 they'd chosen, all loved equally, all belonging absolutely. Micah doted on his baby brother with surprising tenderness. Lena, now 9 and confident, took her role as big sister seriously. Martha, not quite understanding why there was a new baby taking attention, eventually decided he was acceptable as long as he didn't touch her toys. They were loud and messy and sometimes drove each other crazy. They fought over chores and space and who got the last piece of bread. They were, in other words, a real family. One evening in early spring, Caleb found himself on the porch again, watching the sun set over land that now legally belonged to them. Alara joined him, leaving the children inside with instructions to watch Peter and not kill each other. What are you thinking about? She asked. Everything, nothing. How different life is from what I imagined. Better or worse? Different. When Martha, my first Martha, died, I thought that was it. Thought I'd work this land until I dropped dead, and that would be my whole story. He looked at her. I never imagined you. Any of this. If someone had told me 5 years ago that I'd be standing on my own land with 4 children and a husband I actually loved, I would have laughed in their face. Alara leaned against the porch rail. I thought survival was the best I could hope for. Figured I'd spend my whole life running, hiding, trying to stay one step ahead of whatever was chasing me. What changed? You, the kids, this place. Learning that building something is harder than running but means more. She paused. Daniel spent his whole life taking from me, from Thomas, from anyone he could exploit. And in the end, what did it get him? He died alone in a fire, probably hated by everyone who knew him. You think about him much? Sometimes. Mostly, I wonder if he was always that way or if something made him like that. If I'd been in his position, responsible for a kid sister, struggling to survive, would I have made the same choices? No, you wouldn't have, because you know what it's like to be powerless. That changes you, makes you either cruel or compassionate, and you chose compassion. Did I? Or did I just get lucky? Meet the right people at the right time. Luck's part of it, but so is choice. You chose to save Micah and Lena when we could barely feed ourselves. Chose to trust me even though you had every reason not to. Chose to fight instead of giving up when Daniel came after us. Caleb took her hand. You made good choices, Ilara. That's not luck. That's character. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I think that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Then people haven't been paying attention. Inside, they heard a crash followed by Micah yelling and Lena's high-pitched protest. Ilara sighed. I should go deal with that. Let them work it out. They need to learn. They're going to destroy the cabin. Then we'll build another one. We're good at building things. She smiled at that and settled against him instead of going inside. They stood there listening to their children's chaos, watching the day fade into night, counting their blessings in the only way that mattered, by being present for them. The years that followed weren't easy. There were more droughts, more harsh winters, more times when they wondered if they'd make it through. But they always did. They adapted, learned, grew stronger. Micah eventually claimed his own piece of land adjacent to theirs, building his own cabin with Caleb's help. He married a girl from town, started his own family, became the kind of man who helped his neighbors and asked nothing in return. Lena grew into a fierce, competent young woman who knew her own mind. She apprenticed with Sarah Blackwood, learning midwifery and medicine, becoming the person people called when crisis struck. Martha and Peter grew up knowing nothing but the security of love and land that couldn't be taken. They had their own struggles, their own challenges, but they faced them from a foundation their parents had bled to build. And Caleb and Ilara grew old together on the land they'd claimed from wilderness. Their hands became gnarled with arthritis, their backs bent from decades of hard labor, their faces lined with the evidence of lives fully lived. On their 20th anniversary, the real one, counting from when Ilara first stepped off that wagon, they sat on the same porch where they'd spent so many evenings. You ever regret it? Caleb asked. Answering my letter, coming out here to marry a desperate stranger? Ilara looked at the life they'd built. The expanded cabin, the thriving farm, the grandchildren playing in the yard, the community they'd helped create. She looked at the man beside her, still stubborn, still solid, still hers. Not once, she said. Not even on the hardest days. You? Nope. Best decision I ever made was writing that letter. Second best was letting you choose to stay. I don't remember you giving me much choice. Didn't I? Could have sold you out to Daniel, could have let the fear win, but I chose you instead. Chose us. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything. They sat there as the sun set over the valley they'd helped tame, over the legacy they'd built from nothing but determination and love. Their story hadn't been easy or perfect. They'd lost as much as they'd gained, survived more than they should have, made mistakes they couldn't undo. But they'd also found something rare and precious, a partnership forged in fire, a family built from broken pieces, a home that belonged to them absolutely because they'd earned every inch of it. Some people inherited their lives, Ilara thought, took what was given and made the best of it. But she and Caleb had built theirs from scratch, choosing each other again and again through every crisis, every hardship, every moment when giving up would have been easier. That choice, renewed daily, tested constantly, never regretted, was the real legacy they'd leave their children. Not the land or the money or the material things they'd accumulated. The knowledge that love was a verb, not a feeling. That family was what you built, not just what you were born into. That home was wherever you chose to stand and fight for what mattered. And in the end, on that wide frontier under endless sky, they hadn't just survived. They'd built something that would outlast them both. A legacy of resilience, of chosen family, of refusing to let circumstances define them. The mail-order bride and the desperate rancher who'd married her had become something neither could have imagined that first awkward day. They'd become partners, parents, pioneers of their own lives. And that was enough, more than enough. It was everything.